Hello everyone, it's Treknado time. I'm Captain Logan, and with me today is Adam and Brandon Grimm.
Hi.
Brandon Grimm, who has a last name, Adam does not. Adam has asked that his last name never be mentioned on camera. So Adam Meredith, I'm sorry
redacted.
that I just messed that up for you, but I like to call everyone by their first and last name, so you'll just have to, so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, so today, Adam and Brandon and I are going to do a commentary on a movie that I have done before, but Adam and I talked this out and decided, you know, if we're going to do For and Beyond, we should probably go back and get these fresh in our brains again and experience them together, guys.
Yeah.
And so that's
sense.
what we're going to do today. Sarah and I, years ago, let me set this up for a second, started a series of Trek movie commentaries, and we got through 3. And Sarah got really busy, and she's not been on camera in a long time and hasn't had time to do these things. And so I was going to start back with Star Trek 4 with Tim Lyons. And I think I told you guys about this.
Yeah.
Tim and I thought it would be interesting to bring on somebody who liked Star Trek and was familiar with the movies but didn't have the knowledge that I have, and we could kind of contrast our opinions and our perceptions as a casual fan versus a, for lack of a better term, mega fan.
Right.
And unfortunately, Tim passed away, and we were never able to do that. And so those commentaries never got done. So we're going to go back and start from scratch. And we don't have a timetable for this, guys. We haven't decided exactly how we're going to handle this. If the very next thing we do after this on Treknado is going to be Wrath of Khan, or if we're going to go back and do another episode. My leaning is, let's get these knocked out.
Right.
Because it's weird not to have commentary tracks on the channel for all the Star Trek movies, and I would like to get these done. And people have been asking Eric and I for a long time to do a Star Trek Mania and a Star Wars Mania, and we thought about even combining those two franchises and doing both as a Mania, but there's still, compared to the other things we've done so far with Mania, not enough entries. And so this is going to be for us kind of a mini Mania, but not coming out daily like the Manias do. So anyway, that's my kind of spiel there.
Mania.
Doing motion picture differently today. We're not playing Star Trek Monopoly like Sarah and I did, which we thought was kind of necessary because this movie has such a reputation for being boring. And then we had a really interesting experience with it that time, where we started picking up on a lot of ideas and thematic stuff that we'd never thought of before, and we had a really interesting conversation. I do not remember any of it. I have no idea what really, really cool, interesting philosophical stuff, like a couple of things maybe here and there, the bigger items. I don't know why that was such a great watch for us, but if you go back and look at that commentary, you hear me praise that movie more than I ever thought I would. And you see us stop playing Monopoly as much about halfway through, and we start actually really paying attention to the movie. Right. Well, in preparation for this, I watched it again recently, and I'm not totally sure what I was thinking.
Perhaps it was the very act of using your brain to play a board game that got you thinking at all. And but seriously. That thinking at all kind of made you also think about what you were listening to.
No, I think you're onto something, because it was that multitasking and like the triple multitasking of looking at the thing, playing Monopoly, trying to keep up with those two things at once, and then trying to thoughtfully discuss a movie we thought would be a dead air fest.
Right.
And what I've discovered, and I still stand by this, is that the only way to watch Star Trek the Motion Picture is with other people and constantly talking about it as you're watching it, or talking about anything, really.
Right.
Sure.
But this is not a movie to watch in a room by yourself with nothing else going on,
unless for torture in countries.
You're in country. There are many countries where they use this as a torture device. Yeah. If you get thrown in Guantanamo Bay, you get thrown into a cell.
I was thinking more like
with
Canada.
This film.
This is Canadian torture.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
It's not too harsh, but it's
a
mild annoyance.
See, I thought it was not sanctioned by regular U.S. law. So
it's not banned by the Geneva Convention.
Section 31 uses this as a torture device. So anyway, I recently watched this again because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and watched it with Eric, and we were once again kind of bored. But I mean, there's interesting ideas that just aren't explored enough.
Sure.
And we'll talk about all that stuff. I also have done some research recently into Star Trek Phase 2 and learned a lot of things about that I didn't know about. And so we'll talk quite a bit probably during this because we'll have ample opportunity to talk about things that are not exactly what you're seeing on the screen because that will get really redundant. So anyway, anybody have any preamble you want to do before we get into this? Again, we're going to want to make sure that we have plenty of things to talk about while we're actually getting into the film. But any memories of this movie anybody wants to throw out?
I remember watching this for the first time on VHS, and it opens with like, when I was a kid, the Klingons were my favorite, and it opens like, oh look, there's like 3 Klingon ships, and that was it. And the rest of the movie's just them flying around in a cloud. After that, I was like, wow.
Yeah, the Klingons are just there because it's a species people are familiar with, and we need something to get the ball rolling, and I guess that's supposed to be the thing. Although, I mean, we'll get into this, but like just Spock knowing about it was enough. You didn't even need that scene.
Right.
When I was very little, my grandpa would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I would get to watch it with him. But during the day, sometimes I'd have the TV on. And if I'm not mistaken, it was TV Land. They used to air the original series. And I would watch that. And every once in a while, they'd air a Star Trek movie on TV at some point. And the first time that I saw this movie was actually on TV. But I had some those old Time Life science books, that you see in like every thrift store. The hardcover ones. For like information technology or something like that. It had a picture of the Voyager spacecraft on it. And I've always been a fan of the Voyager spacecraft.
So it just gives away the ending.
So this was kind of... It was really... That's all I remember about it.
A slow as molasses burn to get to this twist at the end.
Sure. But the thing that... It's just that I remember... That's what I took from this movie. I don't remember anything else about this movie other than it's huge, it's gone a great distance, and
it's long.
They're trying to be like 2001: Space Odyssey a little bit.
a lot, yeah. No, it's unfortunately influenced too much by that movie, but we'll get into all that. So, we're already 7 minutes in, and we haven't even started the movie yet. This is the Treknado motion picture special longer version.
Special longer version.
Let's go ahead and get into
Not
it.
So NATO.
And I'll talk a little bit about my experiences with this as we start. We're gonna have plenty of time to talk about whatever we want to. Let's go ahead and get into
opportunity.
it. So today we're watching the director's cut, which is the only way I have it, and it occurred to me that this might not have been the best choice of version because I don't know how many people actually have this, but I'm sure a lot of folks are going to listen to this without actually watching the movie as well. So anyway, sorry about that, but this is the same version that Sarah and I did before, and I don't believe we got any complaints about it. So and the other version is only a couple of minutes. It's actually possible because of the way this movie is paced that you could watch this or that you could listen to this with the other version and not even tell that it's unsynced and that it's off. That is possible. Anyway, so if you want to watch it with us, like I said, this is the DVD Director's Edition that came out in 2001. Get out your DVD if you want to watch this with us. This is the only way this was released, this particular version. And if you want to gamble with watching it the other way, get your Blu-ray or however else you want to watch it, get it at timestamp 0. Make sure to get past all the menus and get ready to press play whenever I say now. And nobody be alarmed if you haven't watched this in a long time or you've never seen it before. It does open with a 3-minute overture that is just stars moving at you and a screensaver. And
and then the not this version, but the original version is just black.
Is it really? Yeah. Oh no, I knew that. I forgot all about that. Yeah. All right. I'm glad we're watching it this way. There's nothing wrong with your television set. All right, everybody, please press play right now. So when Eric and I. Let me do that again, guys. Give me a second here. That was weird. It's not showing me the timestamp. I think it was playing, but it's not showing the timestamp.
Yeah, it was playing. I could hear the music.
Everybody, please press play right now. So, when Eric and I watched this in preparation for this, just because of the player we were playing on, it's an older player.
Yeah.
It didn't go to the menu. It just started right up, like sometimes DVDs do. And Eric looks at me and he goes, "Okay, I know about the overture, but is it possible that we're waiting for the menu to pop up?" And we wanted that to happen so bad.
That would have been hilarious.
If I was putting this out on DVD, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Just troll the audience with a 3-minute overture, and then ba 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 ba, click on the icon to start the film.
And it's one of those things you can't skip over too. It's like the copyright logo.
It would
they
have
got like that.
Yeah, that would be the best.
Can't move it.
If something's wrong with your machine, you got to restart the thing.
So, why the thematic choice of the Starfield in, like, we're looking out the back of a moving ship?
That's a good point. Why aren't we going forward?
Yeah. Well, we're on the
know.
back side. We're just kind of seeing the ship go away from
So we know that the people that did the new special effects for this version were the folks that did the CG for Enterprise and probably late Voyager, I would imagine, although I don't know that. Yeah. But they're a little bit careless with some things in those. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but a lot of those effects aren't great. They might have just accidentally rendered this backwards and never thought about it. I don't know.
They
never forget the Xindi Orlando attack aftermath with the... It was really bad fire. We watched it one time.
Yes, we did.
Also, fire going in reverse.
Also, do you remember the horrible shuttle crash in Breaking the Ice? That's one of the hardest things I've ever looked at in CGI. No kidding. So this movie, space, except for in our solar system, seems to be littered with nebulae. There's just nebulae everywhere.
Sure.
Why isn't there a nebula?
How come they never passed nebulas?
Well, that would have cost too much.
Why is this just the reverse of a screensaver?
You know...
No, you're probably right.
Even when Q sends Next Gen to the board.
The Delta Quadrant, yeah.
When you when you see that happen, you'll see nebula and things passing in those starfields
when it's flying
as they go by.
Yeah.
Sure, but like they're making a regular TV show and they want to make sure it looks good.
Yeah,
and they're just like,
movie.
you know what? Anything but black would be better.
Right.
They said.
Yeah.
And they just threw this on the screen. So this is, especially when it's just with black. I mean, the way it was put out in the theater. I mean, people must have wondered if it was a mistake. Like, did the projectionist fall asleep? What's going on? That is basically just going to an orchestra concert, and the score for this film is phenomenal.
It is.
It's really good. Eric said, it's just generic space. Science fiction movies are already starting to be all the rage in the late 70s. I don't really feel like I'm looking at Star Trek over anything else. And I said, if I can put myself back in that time period, that's probably right. I have such an association of this music with Star Trek. Sure. And obviously with what we're listening to right now, because this is just the Next Generation theme later. But yeah, it's a really ominous score.
It is.
It's brilliant.
It's ponderous. It is one of the last movies that was released theatrically with an overture, too. It was like they were trying to kind of tie it into old Hollywood grandness and stuff.
Well, and of course they were, because they were throwing back to 2001 so hard.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And it makes sense, like, finally bringing back Star Trek and trying to make a big deal out of, not only we haven't had Star Trek on TV for so long, and you never thought you'd get to see it with these effects and stuff, but also we've rarely ever done this with a TV show before this. And especially, we've never done it with this big of a budget.
I can't even think of a single example. I mean, I guess...
I think there's something, but I can't think of an example either.
I mean
TV
like
show
Batman 66, when they did the movie for Batman 66.
Sure.
But I mean, that's
really
just an
extension of that TV show.
Right.
I mean, it had a bigger budget. It was made as a film. I guess that counts. Right. I don't know that it's ever. And if you can think of an example, guys, before 1979, let us know. I don't think there is an example of a show that was off the air that comes back in this form.
So this may have started that whole trend.
Sure.
I'm sure it did. You shouldn't have blue, Brandon.
So we talked over the credits. Some of the credits for this are really interesting, and I'll get into some of this as we go along, because of its connections to and it being a failed TV show that turns into, or not even failed TV show, a TV show that never happened, that turns into this movie. Alan Dean Foster came up with a story for this, and he just writes novels now. And he writes a lot of like movie tie-in novels and stuff. Alan Dean Foster was a big Star Trek fan and wanted to write for Star Trek, and wrote the pilot for Phase 2, which obviously is still so much of this movie. He gets credit for story, but he was nowhere around this actual production while it was being made. It's written primarily by the constant butting heads of Gene Roddenberry and Harold Livingston, right?
That's right. Okay, I remember this now.
If I may say about these ships here, I always got the sense the Klingon ships that the inside didn't match the vastness look of the outside. The outside always looks like it's a lot bigger of a ship than the bridge indicates it to be.
Well, and that's because the Klingons are so utilitarian and minimalist. When we get, that's a good point you're making. When we see more of their ships in TNG, they start to match the outside a lot more. So yes, they have a small sardine kind of bridge that feels a lot like you're in like a submarine.
Right. Yeah, it's like they're mostly an armored vehicle. Like all that bulk you see on the outside is armor.
I feel like they tried to do that with Star Trek 4 and the design of the Klingon sets. And
that's a good point, too. We get it, and that influenced the designs in TNG.
I mean, they reused
I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're absolutely right. So, Star Trek fans obviously
Klingons
would know that these were supposed to be Klingons. Yeah, right. They just fire into it.
They just fire at it.
Star Trek fans would have known these were Klingons because of the ship designs, because they looked like souped up, more detailed versions of the D7s.
Well, as you said, you saw
movie
Klingons.
versions of the models from the original series. Basically.
Right, but obviously these don't look anything like what the Klingons look like.
Exactly, that must have been shocking to people.
And it makes me wonder if people who weren't giant Star Trek fans and just were casually familiar with it, or even didn't watch a lot of TOS,
made that connection.
Had any idea that those were supposed to be Klingons. And we're already past them; they don't matter anymore.
Right, and they say it here, so you be clear. But I don't know. I wondered that too. What it would have.
I forgot that they were even the fact that they were Klingons was even name dropped.
Yeah.
I love space arrays, so anytime I get to see a futuristic space array, I love it. These
the only person I've ever known who said who is a big fan of space arrays.
Oh man, I love the Hubble Space Telescope and the Chandra
so you must
X-ray.
Is that the main reason that you love TNG so much? Is just because of all the space arrays?
Yeah, so
they do the Argus array.
They do the Argus array.
So this guy, he was going to be Zahn in Star Trek Phase 2.
Right.
The guy on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And he was paid $35,000 for this movie.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because it was a pay-or-play contract, and everybody had that with Phase 2. And he got this, especially at the time, pretty big sum of money just for getting the part originally.
Right.
And he was supposed to be the Spock replacement all the way up until the 11th hour, before they finally started making this, which was part of many reasons that the script for this movie was being written as they went along. The first act was done. Mm-hmm. None of the rest of it. They kept throwing stuff out, and part of that was because of that feud that Livingston and Roddenberry had constantly. They kept rewriting over each other. And it was an absolute nightmare. Livingston quits the project 4 times. And the fourth or like 3 times, and then he finally
who's able
finishes
to talk
it.
him off the
it's
ledge?
The Tron laser. Now
time.
I get it.
What's that now?
Who's able to talk him off the ledge every time he threatens to quit?
A lot of it's just money, and like initially it's just he's gonna get paid this pretty inordinate sum of money, but eventually he said that's not even worth it. The last time, one of the Paramount execs literally locks him in an office for 20 minutes. What his secretary gives him some gin and he goes in this office, and he drinks himself silly, and he is drunk enough that when the exec comes in 20 minutes later, he's able to talk him into coming back onto the project with even more of a giant sum of money. This is an ominous sound effect that the 70s loves.
I don't know what I always wonder what that sound is. I don't
what
know
exactly it is
what
that's
it
making
is
it. I don't know.
Can I mention how big this spacecraft apparently is?
Real quick. So is this stuff new?
This right here is new. They did this.
So we're talking about the statues of, if you're not watching, of Vulcans with lirpas.
The legs part was just this thing, and they made it into the statues. It was just kind of like a shape in the original version, and I think the reason
but in the actual set they built the leg.
Yeah, they built the leg.
Is somehow new,
right? And when they show it in the original matte painting, it's just kind of like a blob with legs.
Okay,
it's really weird, but they did.
So, are you glad they remastered this?
No,
or do you think it looks kind of bad?
I don't think it looks all that good. And if you look at these people closely here, you can tell they're speaking English, and they just made up Vulcan words to dub them over later.
I never noticed that. They absolutely are. One thing... I'm sorry, Brandon, we'll get back to you, but...
you're fine.
The thing is, the first act of this, there's a lot more to talk about than the rest of the film. So we'll actually be discussing more of what we're looking at in these early scenes before we start groping for conversation later. But anyway... I always wondered, Adam, and I don't have any details on this, really, why we didn't develop the Vulcan language more. Because if memory serves, that's also still Mark Okran.
It is.
Okran writes that language, and I don't know why, especially because of how insanely popular Spock was.
Right.
I mean, to the point where they also offered him a big sum to come back because he wasn't supposed to be in this and he wasn't supposed to be part of Phase 2. Why does the Klingon language take off like it does, but not Vulcan?
It's weird.
Because he clearly developed enough of a syntax that it doesn't sound like just a bunch of gibberish.
And especially at this time, the Vulcans were way more popular than the Klingons.
Yeah.
I mean, the Klingons didn't really become...
To the point where Fletcher gets... Robert Fletcher, the costume designer, who I interviewed last year, he gets away with completely redesigning the Klingons.
Right.
And he's the reason we have forehead ridges and stuff now.
Right.
She just did a mind meld on Spock. Is that still not a taboo thing at this point?
No, the Enterprise makes all that up.
That was all BS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a complete... I want to call that a retcon.
And then they write the ship in Season 4 by having this whole...
I didn't know that actually came
which feels like it would have taken a long... And it has to be a big conspiracy where there's just one guy who made all that happen. And I mean, I feel like Manny Cotto did the best he could with it, but it still comes off pretty silly.
I thought that seemed weird, because I didn't used to remember that.
Yeah,
and then when I started hearing about it, I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and also keep in mind that mind melding goes all the way back to... the dawn of Vulcan culture, and it's a big part of their of their culture and of their
okay.
Look at this. The extras look like they came out of Logan's Run. Look at the outfits these people are wearing.
What is it, real quick, in traditions and stuff? But they, but that shuttle thing is pretty cool looking.
It is.
The tram, the monorail. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But maglev rail.
What I was going to say, Brandon, is I could sort of see that happening where you'd get to a point in Vulcan culture where they're so obsessed with logic they overcompensate and they don't want anything resembling emotion that has anything to do with emotion. And telepathy is that telepathic contact is a transfer of emotion, and they might be afraid that they would get back to like a Romulan way of life or something. Right. But it simply doesn't match with anything we had before, and it just makes them seem way more cynical than you ever had any sense that they were. It just doesn't. It seems like it would take longer for them to get over that. They're too altruistic by TOS for me to buy that. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, I got you.
Like 500,000 years ago, maybe.
Right.
I mean, it would be interesting to do a period of their culture.
They don't
want to
be like Romulans. They're acting like Romulans in Enterprise, basically, the entire time. I've been watching Enterprise again recently. I've forgotten how annoying the Vulcans were on that show.
Well, and it's one of those things, I don't want to talk too much about this, but because it has nothing to do with this movie, but it's one of those things, Adam, where it feels like they're taking ideas they developed in the 24th century and moving ahead in the past.
Yes.
And the idea that the Vulcans are somewhat in denial about the fact that they're not incapable of emotion, they've buried their emotions, is a thing we do play with and explore, especially in some places in DS9 and in some in TNG here and there. But we go backwards to explore that, and if they wanted to do all that, go forward. It would have been interesting to have and I know I've been saying that a lot lately, especially with Discovery, but like with 25th, 26th century, it would be interesting to maybe take the Vulcans to way too extreme of a place.
Right.
And see what that's like, and that would be the way to break the Vulcans off from the Federation if you ever wanted to do that story. But anyway,
this is a long transporter beam.
You know what? Eric said the same thing, but Adam, would you agree with this? It's shorter than TOS was.
Yeah, I probably.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, TOS transporters took way longer than that.
I have no idea what that is.
Especially early on.
Put his hand on green thing.
Oh, yeah, what is the point of that?
What's the point of that?
Well, but the thing is, they just beamed him. They would already know who he is.
Yeah, but maybe it's a check-in time.
Look at this. They beamed him here.
That's a good idea.
Well, I guess the transporter wasn't working, so they couldn't. But, I mean...
Would you need a DNA test or something if you went in a transport? And are they that paranoid? Like, I think it's more likely to be what you're talking about.
I think it's just an added step, like you check in. You know, you've seen on camera via transporter.
That's how he's clocking in. Kirk was not paid to get here, but he's being paid from that moment on. I'm sorry, what Adam?
No, nothing.
By the way, guys, that's the office level. In case you wanted to know, that's where it is.
I saw that.
That's where it is. That's the office level.
But let me talk for a second, though. Those Klingon ships were traveling next to what we find out later is the V'ger spacecraft, but I can't tell. It's a little bit of both. So they appear to be moving slowly, but at the same time, they're moving great distances with relation to this giant object they're next to. So I think they're actually moving fairly fast.
Sure.
But they're obviously not moving at any sort of a warp speed.
They had to cheat so it could seem like they were moving, because if they were actually moving at the realistic speeds, it wouldn't look...
It would just zoom across the screen,
right? But it gives the impression that they're actually moving at a great deal of speed, and I think it doesn't necessarily not work.
What's really interesting about that is that audiences familiar with TOS... And also keep in mind, I should interject this real quick, that you would have a lot of fans at this point who, for them, seeing Trek on the big screen was not as long of a wait because it got so much more popular on syndication that a lot of people waited 4 or 5 years as opposed to 10, right? But you would have had a lot of people who watched the show on TV who are used to not having any kind of speed or warp effects. And remember, this is the first time we have any kind of a warp speed effect. Whenever
makes
the
it
ship
more
goes to warp in TOS, you just have to use your imagination. We never actually show it.
Right.
And even though looking back on it, it looks so silly now, I bet it was really cool at the very start.
I don't think it looks silly. I think their warp effect in this is great.
No, he's talking about in the original series. Are you talking about
I'm talking about this
one. About now.
The warp effect in this looks great, Brandon.
No, I know it does. That's what I'm saying. But
he's not crazy. He's not seen this in forever. He's going off of memory.
No, I'm talking about realistically. If you look at it from a realistic standpoint.
Brandon,
so are you saying that that the warp that somehow the warp effect and don't bury yourself in a hole? Are you saying the warp effect in TNG is more realistic somehow than the warp effect in this?
Yes, I am.
Oh, or you are? Okay,
I am.
All right,
I absolutely am.
So can we talk a little bit about the slowness of all of this?
We're moving slowly as compared to
that's not what I mean.
Object.
Just how long we're looking at the ship. So they know. Here's the thing. The special effects in this movie had a shot at looking just really god-awful, and they got really lucky that they got who they got. So, not only does this story-wise and visually call back really hard to 2001, but the special effects are done by one of the big guys who worked on that movie.
Right, Doug Trumbull.
And,
so do you think he had a lot to do with the length of scenes?
Well, I think the fact that the effects look as good as they do has a lot to do with the length of scenes. So they don't have enough story and enough scenes of people actually interacting in this movie to really pad it out to even just a 2-hour movie, if not 2:15. I mean, they should have cut this to like 1:45 or less.
I want one of those.
I think they easily could have gotten away with that, and I think you could. It's funny because this was originally based on a 2-hour pilot script, and it could have been 45 minutes really easily. It's still better than Farpoint because I sort of know what's going on.
Right. This model is incredible.
It's incredible,
of course.
So
this model work in Star Trek is legendary.
I forget his name, but there's a guy who they originally hired because of this really great-looking Levi Jeans commercial he made, and it took it turns out they didn't realize how long it took him to make that, and that commercial was over budget and way past the due date. And he was promising all these lavish things with this movie that he couldn't deliver on time. And this movie had to come out the December date that it was supposed to come out in '78 because the theaters had this deal with Paramount where if it came out that date, they got this huge sum of money up front, and if it didn't come out at that time, they were going to lose out on that. So
really?
There was never a question that this had, no matter what it looked like, had to come out that date.
Wow.
And he gets fired and replaced with the guy from 2001 because of that.
Right. Who also directed a film I like called Silent Running. Which
yes. I've never seen that, but I know of it.
There is a very special way that they did these lights to make them look like they're if I'm not mistaken, they have tiny little tubes on them that the bulb sits behind, so it kind of tunnels the light out rather than having a broad spectrum of beams.
Yeah.
It has a tighter band so that they could get those pinpoints of light on the ships in a small way.
And do you think they're in any way enhanced to have more of the kind of glow effect around them, or is that just what those lights do?
Well, when you put a light at the back end of a tube, it similar to a spotlight. It just makes a miniature spotlight.
I think it also just depends on what lens you're using and stuff too, causes that lens flare effect around it.
Because they play with that really hard with the lights on the bridge, and I realize they're different kinds of lights.
Right.
But they had to have had a real special kind of either light or lighting effect.
It might be a little bit of fog
for when we'll see this in a little bit. When we try to go to warp and warp's all messed up, the light streak and this really cool effect, and I'm not sure how they achieve that.
Now that was like a filter, I think, or
was
something on the
So sorry, we're talking over the music here, and I've got to talk about this. One of the things that drags this scene down so hard is my perspective of being used to the TNG theme and its tempo, and I always forget that the actual that the theme over the actual opening credits and closing credits is at almost the exact tempo it is in TNG. It's sped up from this. But then you get to that scene and it's just slow as molasses because you have this wonderful driving theme, which is a brilliant new replacement for the TOS theme, which also shows up in the soundtrack. Do you remember that, Adam?
Yes.
I forgot about
he does
that.
like the log and stuff. It's kind of
I forgot about that. It's in there pretty subtly in two places.
Right.
But that makes that scene weird, and that's nothing against this movie because that's later. But a thing that is kind of against this movie is that we have scenes like that where it feels like we're stretching for the length of a track of the score.
Right.
Where it's once again more like watching a concert than it is seeing a movie.
Right. It's like they just took images and overlaid them to the orchestral music almost.
Yeah, and then what even makes that a whole lot worse, just how slow as molasses that. Yeah, yes, it's a big deal that A, the Enterprise is back, and B, it looks as great as it does compared to the original, and that we have these kind of effects. But then later, as we pull out of space dock, we're going to do it again, and it's going to be even longer, and it's going to be even more boring.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Oh, I guess
What is the Traveler doing here?
Sulu is wearing a uniform, but it's like a weird. Look at that.
It's a tunic.
It's like a blazer.
Yeah, he forgot to finish getting dressed this morning.
So was the idea behind this is the refit, correct?
Yes.
So this is the idea behind the refit just because there was going to be such a drastic change to how it looks because it was a big budget movie?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and in fact, not because it was a movie, the refit goes all the way back to Phase 2.
Right, and they even built a new model for Phase 2, and then they had to throw it out because it would not work for this. It would have worked for television, but it was not.
Because the idea, it wasn't detailed enough to be seen on a big giant screen like that. Some of the models that they built for Phase 2, they were able to enhance, and some of them they had to throw out entirely.
Yeah.
Wow.
This warp core effect, they use it on Voyager during the first season or so.
If I'm not mistaken, it's like tinfoil, aluminum foil crinkled up with a light shining on it.
And it sucks because a lot of the accolades we give this movie are more superficial things and obviously not as much character and story stuff. So we've already talked about music. That's the easiest thing to go to with a boring or bad movie. Oh, the music is great. You can't argue with how great these sets look.
Sure.
The film looks amazing.
Right.
Pretty much everything about it looks amazing.
Perspective.
And it's impressive how much of a precedent for what Star Trek will look like in later TV shows when we jump ahead 80 years this movie has. And it influences, I would argue, TNG a lot more than most of the other movies do, because we get away from the nautical look with Wrath of Khan forward in TNG, and it's going back more to this. I mean, like, look at those corridors; those are like Enterprise D looking corridors,
right?
Sort of, kind of, and
and
the engineering is not that different.
That corridor, they reuse that on the next generation.
They've lit it differently, so it's hard.
That is the same corridor. Yeah.
So maybe it's not fair to give it that much credit because they're just saving money by using things they have lying around.
Man, they use some of these sets all the way up until the end of Enterprise and stuff.
I bet.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that I didn't know.
The sick bay set.
I think it's really funny when Decker says this is an almost totally new Enterprise. Because it is. It's almost a totally... to the point where it's kind of silly to act like it's the same ship.
Right, but they freaking, like, gutted it.
They reused this one button on the bridge.
Yeah, I mean,
they couldn't get a replacement.
It's completely... So, obviously, this movie is not super dialogue-driven, and I think it really says something about it that we are this far in already. We are 21 minutes in, and I just realized I forgot to turn the subtitles on. That's hilarious.
Oh. And I didn't even think about
None
it
of us
because
even
earlier
noticed
the Klingon was subtitled.
But that's because he was speaking Klingon.
Yeah.
No, I know, but that...
And the Vulcans were speaking Vulcan.
At the time, I looked at that and I was like, oh, subtitles, and it
so
didn't
I guess
occur
that's
to me.
part of it. Yeah, I did the same thing.
So,
Awkward.
Is that more forced perspective back there?
There were some people back there earlier, but...
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably some forced perspective in it.
Okay.
For that long...
So obviously people hate how super drab these costumes are. A lot of the reason that the color scheme is the way it is because Wise and Roddenberry, I think to some degree, they had differences in what they wanted the costumes to look like, and like they have exactly this design because of Roddenberry, but I think Wise has something to do with the color scheme.
Right.
And the idea was we went with the bright colors in TOS because it's on television, and it was a big deal that we could see things in color now.
Sure.
And so, we did that with 60s Batman, we do that with Star Trek, and it was probably a note from CBS at the time, wouldn't you think, Adam, that like after the cage, like we need to make it brighter and
it
would
have been NBC.
Or NBC is what I meant.
To brighten it up.
CBS is connected to Star Trek now, and I said the wrong network. But
yes, I think so. And then and this was just a trend of the time. The 70s was really beige. You know, earth tones everywhere.
We're lucky we didn't have more wood panels everywhere too.
God.
So we kill somebody in the transporter for
honestly no
happened. Good reason.
I've always wanted to know what exactly this guy saw on the deck.
On the other side,
because I'm imagining
it didn't live long.
The pig lizard from Galaxy Quest. That's what I'm imagining happening.
Yeah, that's
or Garignac.
Garignac.
I mean, we get some sort of indication that they're merging on this pad, and then they get beamed back. So it must have been some sort of blob.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was just a transporter accident.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a mistake because I thought the only point of that scene was we just finished the Enterprise and it's like Star Trek V. We're not quite ready yet. I thought that's all that was about.
I'm pretty sure they're
there
merging.
Are two people that died.
Yeah, they merged.
See, I never even totally got what was going on there.
Yes, and it was that Vulcan that Kirk was talking to back on Earth. Oh. So that's why they're like, he says, I still like a Vulcan there if possible, none available. Until later.
Did they name him Zahn? Was that his name?
No, his name was Sonak. That was the guy.
Yes. So we got to replace Commander Solak.
Yeah.
Who do you know?
And the woman, in the novelization, was like a romantic interest of Kirk.
And we did that.
Broken up about it.
I'm always so not engaged when I watch this movie. So that's just a thing we contrive so that we can come up with some reason to bring Spock here.
Yes.
And what's weird is, like. we easily could have just had him here already, but
we're getting briefed with movie footage.
We're stuck with the outline of and constantly messing with drafts from the Phase 2 pilot script, and they are rushing this like crazy. And so instead of just writing it so that Spock has reason to already be here in the first place, they have to write him in. If Phase 2 hadn't been what led us to motion picture, and somehow this movie just happened by itself. And by the way, originally there was supposed to be a Star Trek movie.
Right. He had been trying to do it since the mid-'70s. He had written... And it wasn't going to be a huge movie like this, probably, until Star Wars happened.
No, but there was another, and there was a director that was that was grabbed, and it was written. I forget what that was called now. Planet of the Titans. That's it. I knew it was Planet of something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, is this not the same room that they tried to assassinate the Federation president in?
I don't know about that. I don't think this set survived this movie. I think they struck it after, and they never used it again.
Gosh, it looks very familiar to me.
Didn't have enough extras.
Yeah, well, I mean, aesthetically, there's a lot of stuff in these movies that look the same.
Of course,
keep rebuilding a lot of the
that's going to be kind of a theme throughout.
There's a lot of sets in this movie they never used in any of the subsequent films. It's weird,
But they bring that corridor back.
They bring that corridor back. They use that corridor set for years.
For decades. Oh, is that the...
That's that thing. That's your array that you liked. Yeah,
space array. Yeah.
It's the not-Argus array.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You guys get ready to be thrilled. Something is actually happening.
As opposed to the Midas array in Voyager.
Well, that was in Voyager. There was a Midas array, I thought.
Yeah.
So, it had the Midas touch. So, obviously...
this guy's trying to outrun it. He's like, no!
Oh my goodness.
Die.
That's hilarious.
Obviously.
Wow. Here you go.
One of the reasons that this movie is paced as slowly as it is because, again...
he got knocked over.
This is... Okay, that sting is really cool. That's very TOS.
Yeah.
That's really cool, actually.
Yes, it is.
I
forgot
about it. With the xylophone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so originally, as we keep talking about, this was a pilot script for Phase 2, which was called In Thy Image. And it's... And so we're like reintroducing the crew and we're introducing new characters, and this would have been written entirely differently and wouldn't have been anything like the slog it is if it wasn't originally a pilot script. But notably, if those two guys could have just gotten along, or Livingston or Roddenberry would have been able to write the movie by himself, it would have been still, I'm sure, more character driven and more fun to watch. I'd like to think Livingston's script was probably a lot better than Roddenberry's, and in fact, there are places where they keep doing mean things to each other, trying to get their scripts to be the scenes that get shot, and
Chekhov's
whenever the execs would read Roddenberry's scenes, there were a couple of places where, for whatever reason, they thought one was that it was Livingston, and it was actually Roddenberry's script.
Oh, really?
And he would like send the wrong one on purpose. Yeah, and they always hated his. But on the other hand, there's a lot of conflicting reports from different people with different opinions. Some of the people involved, writers and producers, suggest that Roddenberry had more actual dialogue-driven scenes and scenes with more character development, and Livingston was much more interested in the action stuff.
Right?
No, the action stuff.
Like
if we'd gotten just his script, some people suggested it might have been closer to something like First Contact.
Oh, really?
But I don't know.
Huh. So
Ilia and Decker were both supposed to be new big characters for the TV show. Of course, they are the precursors to Riker and Troy, and they have a lot of stuff in common with them.
When I was a kid, I even thought, "Wow, these characters are a lot like
I've never
and
considered
Will
that.
Next Generation.
Well, now that you mention it, yeah.
So she is a telepath or a partial telepath, or I don't know what exactly her...
Look at his 70s album. Look at that. It's like a Disney.
Yeah.
Or do they ever come out and say that? I know the Deltons are supposed to be...
I don't know what she is. I know that she...
Hey, everybody, it's the 70s!
Yes. Look at that. He's wearing a medallion.
Yeah. The medallion thing was always really weird to me.
Just a country doctor turned city
and then
doctor.
And then when we do it with Khan, it's not nearly as silly.
No. Banter.
Yeah, really rare banter, because it was decided relatively early on when this became a motion picture, the motion picture, that that it was not going to be that silly fun thing that the TV show was, and this was a serious film, and a lot of that is that 2001 influence.
Right.
And so I'll find the quote. There's a really interesting quote from Nimoy about this in the 50-year mission that was released for the anniversary, where he talks about how he had a really fun idea for an exchange at the end of the movie, and they wouldn't let him put it in. They wouldn't let him do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it was supposed to be no nonsense, and it was a real subtle kind of joke, if it's a joke at all.
Really?
Yeah. So he says. So let me quote him directly, and stop me if something happens on the screen we really need to talk about.
This is the thing you're talking about, where it takes 10 minutes for it to pull out of the garage here.
This is Nimoy.
The space garage.
This is Nimoy. One of the things Star Trek fans always enjoyed a lot about the series was the humor. There was always something tongue-in-cheek, if not flat-out comedy. There was always some wry look, a line, an eyebrow raise, something that let them in on the joke. On Star Trek 1, it was forbidden. I mean forbidden. Wow. It was decided that we were doing a very serious motion picture here. We would not do funny stuff. At the end, in fact, it was the last day of filming. We were shooting the tag scene on the bridge. The adventure was over. The world had been saved. Everybody's safe. Kirk brought together this crew after a hiatus for one special mission. He'd taken McCoy out of retirement, called Spock off Vulcan. Now it's time to take everybody back. He says to McCoy, I can have you back on Earth in 2 days. McCoy says, now that I'm here, I might as well stay. Then he says to Spock, I suppose you want to go to Vulcan. Spock's line, as written, was, my business there is finished. Final rehearsal before the take, Kirk says, I can have you back on Earth. McCoy says, no, I'll stay here. And he says, I suppose you'll want to get back to Vulcan. And I said, if Dr. McCoy is to remain on board, then my presence here will be essential.
That's a good joke.
Everybody roared, which I knew they would. But then I saw the command group together. They really huddled. Bob Weiss came to me and he said, seems inappropriate to be doing humor at this point. I said, and I bet Weiss didn't really feel that way. Right. I said, I offer it to you. I can't make you take it. They wouldn't let me do it. They were really adamant about it. Right. That picture had a very classy look, but it was not a lot of fun either to do or to watch.
Right.
And here's what I don't get about that. But then, Kirk's last line of the movie is that away.
That away, which is kind of a joke, I guess.
Which is kind of goofy, honestly, especially in contrast to the rest of this, which has, like, no personality. And that makes me wonder if, and it's weird that that Nimoy doesn't bring that up.
Right.
Here's the thing. Nimoy, I know I'm talking a lot about people being like commanding large sums of money and stuff. Nimoy and Shatner both had in their contracts that they had a certain amount of control over story stuff, and so they had to be allowed in all the meetings when things would change during the movie. So unusually, it wasn't just Robert Wise that had the last approval of script and stuff. The thing is, the script wasn't done, so these guys all had to approve script constantly as they're making the movie. Right. And I wonder if that wasn't a thing that Shatner was able to fit in because he was Shatner, regardless of that rule.
Wow.
But Nimoy couldn't get his in. That's my guess. I bet that's not as written.
What if it's more? But what if it was written? What if it's more that they just felt like they'd solved all the problems and that they could be less heavy at the end?
Yeah, but why wouldn't they accept his line then if they had done?
Because it's in the same scene. It's right there. Yeah. No, it's really weird.
Yeah, that is really since it's all at the same time. That
he had experience doing Jupiter on 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
so that's why he was able to. do this here.
It's really interesting how much some of the score in this, when they're riffing around what will become the TNG theme, sounds just like the TNG movies later.
Right.
The intruder. What have they intruded? Federation space?
They said they're coming in. They're coming to Earth.
No, I know that, but is he implying that they've intruded Federation space as a hostile entity?
What do you think that honeycomb blink thing does?
I wondered that earlier, too.
I had no idea.
I have no idea. Hey, you clean up real nice, McCoy.
Yeah.
It's
really
interesting.
It reminds me of the 09 engines. They were honeycomb shaped, and they didn't all going at the same time.
It's really interesting how much a lot of these actors seem to have aged in just 3 years between this and Wrath of Khan.
Right.
And some of that might have been intentionally letting Shatner, especially Shatner, letting him look older for the themes of Wrath of Khan, and in this they might have been trying really hard to make him look as young as humanly possible.
In his book, Star Trek Movie Memories, he talks about they did a whole thing where they try to make Norma Desmond him up, where they put all this makeup on and stuff to try to make him look 10 years younger than he was and stuff. And then,
because with what he looks like in this movie, I would make the argument that if they had wanted to set this more shortly after TOS, like do the last mission of the 5-year mission, they could have gotten away with it.
Right.
Because nobody looks too much older. I mean, Doohan is starting to show his age a little bit,
right,
but he hasn't put all that weight on yet. Like, everybody looks pretty good. Uhura doesn't look that different.
Yeah. Oh, here's the cool part.
Did you say the cool part or a cool part?
This
is the cool part. We found the spirograph wormhole.
Okay,
what were you going to say?
That's definitely the use of some sort of filter.
This thing here, the tunnel, was a laser that they used.
That's
cool.
Now
that you say that, it's pretty obvious. That's a filter.
Yeah.
Based on our...
But it gets more and more pronounced as this scene goes along.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool.
It's really cool.
Interesting wormhole visual on the screen. I like how you can still see the stars on the outside.
It's weird that this happens here, but nowhere else ever in Star Trek, where a wormhole is created by the warp drive.
Yeah, I never understood what happened here.
Yeah.
Like, just all of our equipment is really messed. Maybe the idea was supposed to be that V'ger was messing with our equipment? That's not it, is it?
No, it's like something in the engine, like there was like a switch that was messed up in the warp drive or something. I
guess it's just an excuse to shoot across space.
Yeah. They need more action. Yeah.
Navigation.
If this kind of thing is happening all the time, we're maybe not. Maybe Q was right. Maybe we're not ready to be out here.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, there's a little bit of that question even in this movie.
Do you get the?
Yes.
But
it's slow, so we really have longer.
Stand by on.
No! Here it is.
Yep. This part's great.
Do you get the
hold on.
Well, it's belay.
Yeah, it's belay. Belay that phaser order. Yeah.
Whoa.
That's cool. He looks like he's phasing. Going back and forth.
There's a line that Chekhov says here that I have no idea what he actually says. Because
you're looking at subtitles, so you might
the subtitles.
get to see what it is now.
I'll finally find out what it is.
Torpedoes!
He goes, ah!
Armed.
This is a cool graphic when it goes. Oh, they didn't show it. Maybe they cut that out of this.
They didn't show what?
When it locks onto the asteroid, the targeting sensor or whatever.
Is it locked on yet?
Oh, here it goes.
He's playing asteroids. Is that it?
I guess.
These are pretty good graphics.
Here it is. This is a line. All he said was torpedoes away. It sounds like he said like 5 more things than that.
No, I always got that one. Not to be contrary, but I knew what he was saying.
He's Russian.
And I don't understand
away!
Why does it fix it when they blow up the asteroid? Why does that suddenly bring them out of warp?
And also, it's really dangerous to fire when you're at war.
Right.
is the fact that we're in. But then the question is, do we still have a warp field because we're in that wormhole? I assume we do. I can't really tell. Yeah, I never knew what exactly was going on in that scene.
Do you get the impression
there's a little of that in this movie?
In this movie that they really haven't progressed as far as they have in Next Generation to warrant a visit by the Q? Or do you feel like they're kind of... I know that in Next Gen they're going to like new areas that they're exploring.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Half the time they're just shuttling diplomats.
Yes,
they do a lot more just going to places they've seen already, checking up on people.
Right, but I feel as though that at this point,
Kirk not only would have gone back to SETI Alpha 5, but he would have done it so often, Khan would have been sick of him. He'd have been like, leave.
Yeah, but I get the impression that they know almost as much about space as they do by Picard's time.
I think more of the idea is that was when we thought of Q, and so then we had him show up and do that. Yeah.
Sure.
And I don't understand here. So now what's their plan? Are they going to do Impulse all the way to V'ger? Is that what they're going to do here, or what?
Because are they just going to...
slowly?
Well, no, because they do go to warp again later.
Yeah, after Spock comes and fixes it.
Oh, that's right.
And they may be going Impulse, but V'ger's moving very fast in their direction, too.
So why do they have to go to warp to begin with? What the hell is that?
Maybe they need to approach it slowly, but they could get near it fast.
My face.
So I was talking about how great the sets are in this, but the quarters are weird, right?
And this quarter set they reused. This was the set for. This was Data's quarters, and anybody on Next Generation that doesn't have a window, basically.
Well, more just to how it's furnished and the lights and stuff.
Right.
Like you'd go crazy if you had fluorescent lights over your head all the time.
Oh my god, yeah, that's fluorescent.
Yeah,
light.
That's obnoxious. And
these are space
the glass
partition
is strange. I like that they're so much bigger. They don't have the Spartan quarters they used to. They make a big deal in the Phase 2 book about how they wanted to. This is, by the way, my source here is the book about the failed TV show, or the not made TV show, Phase 2, written in the mid '90s by Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, right after First Contact came out.
Right.
And I think Voyager just started, and they talk about how they're kind of inching ever closer to the kind of cruise ship / warship that Enterprise D will turn into.
Right.
How long has this movie been running for already?
We are more than a half hour in. We're 40 minutes in.
40 minutes in, and we've seen V'ger twice, and we still don't know anything.
We don't know anything about it. We don't really know what the stakes are.
Yeah, we don't even know what we're doing yet.
We've introduced our new characters and started this kind of rivalry with a little bit with Decker and Kirk, but that's about it.
Romance here.
Yeah, or unrequited romance. Anyway,
we never talked about her oath of celibacy and how strange that.
Yeah,
what
she
the hell
immediately says that maybe it's because
I forgot about that. Yeah,
you know what? It could be because Kirk is such a alien womanizer.
I think
she comes on and
they
says,
were trying to say that her sexual attraction is so strong that she has to swear that she's not going to get involved with any of these people.
Maybe I'm wrong that she doesn't have any kind of telepathy. Maybe that's what I was remembering.
That's what it was.
Just that sexual drive
like
thing.
That.
Yeah.
It's just a bizarre thing. Gene Roddenberry came up with that.
I'm sure.
He came up with that.
And we called back to that a little bit, but make it way more interesting in Perfect Mate.
Right.
That's kind of a Perfect Mate idea.
Right.
I mean, it's not exactly the same
thing. Well, they
thing.
already touched on it in Ilana Troyes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's not quite an empathic metamorph, but
right. It's so. You're talking about Gene Roddenberry. I'm sure his behavior in this movie is why he was not allowed to be. Involved in any.
No, he did some crazy stuff with this movie, and it suffered a lot for it. He's not the only reason that it came out the way it did, certainly, but he seemed to make Livingston's life hell, and that had a lot to do with why this movie was all over the place and so meandery. But a lot of it was just poor choices in trying to adapt this pilot script. So I don't know if you guys are aware of the weird politics with how Phase 2 turns into this movie, but what happened was, and I don't mean to spend too much time talking about history, but we have plenty of time. What happened was originally, Phase 2 was supposed to be the flagship show, and this is going to sound really familiar.
Right, as a network.
For a Paramount network in 79, 78, 79, right. 78. And they start getting... They go to Roddenberry and they start getting the pilot together and the script together, and they start writing scripts for the whole season because Roddenberry decided he wanted every script written before they even started filming, which was a really bad idea because you don't even know who your actors are yet. You have no idea what their what the chemistry is going to be between the actors, and obviously the whole triad relationship and flavor comes from the actors, not from those scripts.
Right.
So you had all these writers who were flying by the seat of their pants and had no idea what the flavor of the show was.
Right.
And if they had filmed them even close to exactly what they were, they would have been dry and stale, and they might have felt too much like this.
Right.
So that's a thing. But what I didn't know, that all I had heard before.
Right.
What I didn't know was that apparently it becomes this movie because... that network falls apart and they're not able to make the network.
Right.
And the reason they're not able to make the network is because they went to advertisers and they couldn't get enough. They couldn't get enough big advertisers and enough money to make the network viable.
Okay.
So they shut down plans for the TV show. They decide it's going to be a movie, but they're afraid of losing credibility, and it's already public knowledge that the show is being made. Mm-hmm. So they don't tell anyone except for a real small, close-knit group of people. And they keep doing some production stuff on a show they know is not going to get made for like 3 months.
They made the people keep working on it?
Yes.
Oh my god.
So what they did was they prioritized, they strategized it so that they built sets that they knew that
We're
they could
never going to be used.
that they knew that they could build into this movie.
Okay.
So this bridge, as far as I understand it, is the Phase 2 bridge.
Okay.
And they just keep building on it.
But what about the guy that was making the model and all that stuff? Did they tell him?
That stuff ends up getting thrown
put in
out.
the garbage, right.
And pretty much everybody that worked behind the scenes, except for script writers and stuff, are given the boot, so that because they're not familiar enough with movies and they're just TV people. So the guy that was supposed to direct the pilot for Phase 2 thought he was going to get this movie, and he gets fired for the sake of getting wise.
Right.
But I think he still got a nice payday.
Oh, that's good.
So,
nice.
You hear the I'm sure you know about this, Adam. You hear the number for the budget of this movie, $44 million, thrown around all the time. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be a $5 million movie originally. It gets bumped up to like $12 million, and then when it's all said and done, what you always hear people say is, we just kept throwing money at this movie trying to get it finished, and it turned into a $44 million budget. Mm-hmm. What I didn't know was the sheer amount of that number is all the work they did on Phase 2.
So they counted that as
They counted that.
Oh, okay.
So everything they did that becomes this movie, going all the way back to the beginning of Phase 2, it turns this into a $44 million movie, including all the money they had to pay out to people, pay or play, that weren't actually in this.
Right.
I just figured out why they went to Impulse. You were asking why they go to Impulse at all. It's because their warp engines created the wormhole.
Right,
so
they said that.
They
We know that.
Fixed.
I know that. What I'm saying is, how the hell are they going to get to V'Ger and Impulse?
Well, they're not. They just went back to warp because they fixed the engines.
Well, I know that, but they didn't know Spock was coming.
They didn't know Spock was coming.
To fix everything.
What Adam's saying is, what did they think they were going to do?
I think they were just stuck.
Right, and the point is, it's they got really lucky that that he shows up.
Here it is. There it is. Yeah.
And the other thing that's really convenient about that is that so they say they're looking for a replacement, but Spock doesn't show up because he's called by Starfleet.
That's a cool view.
Am I right about this, Adam? Spock
he shows up because of the call of
V'Ger.
Yes.
And then the question is, this is a really TOS shot.
Yes.
That over the shoulder.
Yes.
So explain this to me. Mm-hmm. Why does Spock find out about V'Ger I don't understand that.
He was called. It was like a thing calling out from the vastness of space.
Right.
To
Why
him.
does Spock pick up on it, and he's on Vulcan, and no other Vulcans pick up on it?
That's a good
like,
point.
I don't understand
Spock.
that. Like, what is so special about Spock? That, like, I get that Spock's really special, but he's on Vulcan.
Right.
All the abilities he has, bunch of other Vulcans have like, if it's just because of his Vulcan telepathy, but he's on Vulcan.
Right. Yeah.
I also don't totally understand... Oh, this is hilarious. Okay, so I'm always making fun of how... You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah.
Of how DeForest Kelley can't pronounce alien words and things. This is great. He pronounces Kolinar wrong, and I'm watching... I forgot about this. I'm watching this with Eric, and I'm like, see, look, it's like the sell it thing. Right. She says say lot, he says sell it, you're an idiot. You just heard it pronounced. Then the movie makes fun of him, and this does not have enough comedy. But that is like this is kind of a humorless movie, but that is one of the funniest things in any Star Trek anything. It's hysterical.
Where are they? Are they just in like a lounging room or something? What is this place?
I think they're in the rear of the shot that we got.
They show the back of the ship or whatever.
Right, but just similarly, it's like 10 forward, but on the rear, we got to see it a few moments ago. I think that's where
Is that why we saw the stars moving backward? Because it's from their perspective. They're looking at the stars going the other way, Brandon. Is that why we had that at the beginning with the overture? It's because it's from Kirk's perspective, from this scene.
I think it's the officer's lounge or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Now that I think about it. So they call him captain for the duration of the voyage, even though he's an admiral. Because
that's okay.
He's the captain of
that's
the ship.
okay.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, and that's how that would work. I have no problem with that at all.
It's just like a waiting room in a doctor's office. Look at this place.
Looks like there's plants back there.
And they talk about that in some of the background material I read that was intentional because they were trying to figure out a way around that so that he could be the captain of the Enterprise but still have that rank.
Oh, okay. Well, then in the later movies, they're just calling him Admiral all the time and stuff until he gets demoted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, again, I think that's a holdover from Phase 2, where it's like, we want him to be the captain.
Right.
That's a bar behind him. It was full of drinks.
It's his mini bar. Uh-oh. Condition red.
Because I don't know if you know this, but there was a period when they were putting Phase 2 together where they thought that they were going to lose both Shatner and Nimoy.
Really? I didn't know about Shatner.
Yeah. His contract was up, and they had to put it back together, and there was question as to whether or not that would happen. Oh. And then they got it figured out, and so Shatner would have been in Phase 2, but Spock would not have been, and he would have been replaced by Zahn, as you know. The reason, according to this book, that he didn't want... that Nimoy didn't want to be in that show... they didn't write him out.
Right.
He wasn't going to be in enough of it, and he didn't like that he was going to be in the background. I don't know if you knew that. So Spock was supposed to be in like 2 episodes a year, and Nimoy was like, I'm not doing that.
That's what it was?
Yeah, that's what it was. And I think Zahn was still going to be in that show, but I don't know if I'm right about that.
Yeah. Now, I wonder now if that was also maybe due to... Nimoy was having a lawsuit at the time with Paramount over they're using his image without his permission and all these Heineken ads. I don't know if that had anything to do with that, but it might have. And like I read a lot about that stuff too, but I didn't find any connection. But that might have been part of that.
How far are we in the movie now?
It's like an hour. Is it an hour?
Yeah, 50 minutes.
Oh
yeah.
Okay, I was just thinking 50 minutes and our protagonist finally meets the antagonist.
Yep.
Yes. What?
So look, he's got an emblem on his undershirt there. That's kind of, or is that
that's his
casual?
That's not an undershirt. He's just not wearing the outer part of it.
I see.
So,
smartwatch.
Tell me if you agree with this, Adam. Obviously, these uniforms are really drab, and this isn't a lot of fun to look at, which is irritating because it looks so great otherwise.
Right.
I just mean the uniforms. But Kirk's uniform, he's not wearing the entirety of it right now, but you remember what it looks like with the gray and everything.
Right.
I think if everybody else is wearing primary colors and that's what the captain's wearing, it looks okay.
Right. I think you're right. That's a good shot.
We're in the same spot the Klingons were.
I think they cleaned up some of these model shots because they had a problem with this model. what's his name? The 2001 guy, Doug Trumbull.
Yeah.
He painted the model in this like real pearlescent white paint that was real reflective and stuff. But the problem is they did everything in front of a blue screen, so they get this what's called blue spill. So then whenever you'd see like the edge of the model, there'd be like this little, like it would almost look like a feather or like kind of a shimmer around it and stuff. And
Star Wars has that problem.
Yeah, you could see it on the home video release
or something similar to that.
Right.
The kind of shadow that happens around the TIE fighters.
Yes, the same similar. Yeah, and when they made Wrath of Khan, I think they repainted the model.
Okay.
So they went
oh look, it's lightning in space.
So you're thinking that with this remaster, that's one of the things
I think they fixed that.
Because I've only seen it this way the last couple of times I've seen it. And by the way, I was going to talk for a second about my background with this movie. Mm-hmm. I didn't see this in its entirety until after high school.
Oh, really?
Because I could never sit through it. I always fell asleep. I tried 5 or 6 times. I couldn't get through it. And this was not one of the Trek movies that I accidentally mixed up with other Trek movies. I had that a lot, where like I could not remember what happens in Wrath of Khan versus Search for Spock. There are bits of 5 that I thought were in bits of other movies. Did not have that problem with this.
He just got burned.
And that's what Chekhov is for bad things to happen to him and he scream on camera. Uhura is also sometimes
this
for
is
that.
some weird stuff she does here. You're right. She like
she's got that healing thing.
Or some
right,
crap.
but he wants his pain. He needs his pain.
Yes.
No, she's got like this healing thing. But that's not necessarily telepathic.
No.
She's just alien, so she has special powers. We were talking about this earlier. The ways in which these are... yes! And also... sorry, real quick. So there's Chapel, and she's Doctor now.
MD.
But we also have McCoy, and I don't really know why McCoy had to be here, because we have Dr. Chapel.
Well, he said, I need you.
He's wanted pulled out of retirement.
He wanted his partner.
He wanted his buddy. That's why.
Well, and you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, all that's okay, because we'll hear, if we haven't already talked over it, Decker later complain that Kirk is in his way, and he deserves to captain the ship, and Kirk hasn't had any field hours, he said. He has no star hours in 2.5 years, he says.
Single star
hour. Yeah. And so Kirk is out of... he's a little out of commission. He's a little bit out of touch. He's not used to being the captain anymore. And it makes him more comfortable if he's surrounded by everybody that helped to make him great when he was on the ship before. So no, that all tracks. That all works now that I'm thinking about it.
So Spock's over here now, but in Wrath of Khan, he's over on the other side.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so the I'll get there. So the ways in which Ilia and Decker are just Troy and Riker. Mm-hmm. First of all, Decker is named Will. It's Willard Decker, but he's named Will.
Right.
I'm always reminded of that weird moment toward the beginning of Encounter at Farpoint where she says, Bill? And never again. He's Will Riker for the rest of that, that
she
show.
Does call him.
He's Bill for one scene. Yeah. But anyway,
never noticed that.
She has these like extra special powers that give her an edge over men in matters of love. That's a whole thing. They have an unrequited romance. They have a history together. Mm-hmm. They're both meeting up in a pilot to be presumably regulars in a TV show that ends up never happening. Right. So in the movie, they end up both getting killed at the end. Right. Spoiler alert! But they were supposed to be. Big regulars in this show. And that's one of the big problems with this movie, is that by killing them both, because in earlier drafts, Decker is supposed to die and she's supposed to make it.
Oh, really?
And that would have been better, because the way it is right now, it feels like we just have them here because they were in that TV show script, and then they end up feeling like guest stars that take over. Because this movie, besides a little bit of an arc for Spock, is not about our characters at all.
Yeah. No, it definitely.
It's about these grand ideas with V'ger and the idea of why are we here, and finding our God and what we create versus how we were created, and all of that stuff that we'll talk later when we actually finally get to it about 3 weeks from now.
I feel like I've already been here an hour and a half.
But it's about those people and not about these people. And the stuff that's interesting about Spock kind of comes out of nowhere. I don't know why he's doing the colon R now.
I don't know.
So that's a thing. Anyway, sorry guys, I'm talking.
Star Trek
He
Continues
done
finale
that.
deals with this.
Does it really?
He could have done that years before, right? Presumably,
It's a cool projection.
before getting to
Now,
Starfleet.
I want to talk about what they're doing here.
Yeah.
They used a special lens on this where they could have a dual focal length, where they could have two things, like the background
depth
and the
of field?
foreground, in focus at the same time.
Okay.
But it was more than just a flat depth of field. It was where, so Kirk will look like he's in the foreground, and the background behind him will look blurry.
Yes,
but then
they
over
did
on
that
the
earlier.
side, you'll see it, and that all look clear.
I
was
found
going to
that
ask about
distracting.
that.
I know
earlier.
they don't hardly. They used it a little bit, I think, in some movies, maybe in the 70s.
I don't know what the point of that was. Because it looks like there's just this big glass screen behind it.
Yes, and I thought the same thing. I'd never noticed that before.
Yeah, they did.
No, I hadn't either until my last watch of it.
Yeah. The nicer the TV, the more you can make out in the old stuff that...
Which sometimes hurts stuff, of course.
Right.
And that's why, smartly, they rebuilt some things that they could have used from Phase 2 because it was intended for a television screen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, are you guys aware of what the little belt things are for?
No.
They don't use them in the story at all. They're not related to anything that happens. I always found them really distracting. It's weird that you would put them there. And I'm assuming that was a holdover from Phase 2, although I haven't read anything about that yet, but I've not finished this book.
Right.
So, apparently, those are supposed to be these devices that keep track of their life signs and stuff. They're basically Fitbits.
Oh.
Yeah,
Really?
that's what they are.
Wow.
So that's their
This stuff looks
vitals,
Yeah,
like
that
their
stuff looks
EKG
really good.
and stuff.
I'm
Yes.
timing this, by the way. I'm curious about how
Now-
long this goes on for.
Yeah, you pull out your watch, but would you like me to time it? Here, I'll time it. We'll have to add a few seconds onto it, but I'll time it. Okay, so what exactly are we timing? Like
Timing until they get to the aperture. Time it to that point.
Okay, all right. So add like 15 seconds onto it
Right.
from what I just did.
Until the probe thing shows up. Do that.
Until the probe thing shows up.
Yes.
That's when we'll stop it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, my
He's
timer is
just got
going.
Reactionary shots.
That's the
They're
shot
not
I was
looking
talking
at
about.
Anything. Yeah, he's just reactions, and there's nothing to see.
And they shot all of this before any of these special effects were remotely done, and I think
Right.
while the other guy was still allegedly making
really?
special effects. And so all Robert Wise had to show them was drawings of what this was supposed to look like. So he just put those on the view screen.
That's
Just drawings of what this stuff was supposed to look like.
Wow.
What do you think they were going for with this sort of fluidic metal type
No.
dot strewn?
Something that looks really cool.
Layer
They're trying to
cake.
out Star Wars.
They're trying out
Star Wars.
2001,
Yeah,
2001.
yeah,
They're trying out
2000.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, that's a $10 million question. Let me ask you guys this.
Okay.
Do you think Star Wars is a better looking film than this film?
Ooh.
Because I'm not willing to say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. The original Star Wars?
Yeah.
No.
Now, right now, we are
I
kind of
can't
comparing
compare them.
remasters to
Right.
originals or remasters to remasters.
Right,
So, I mean,
but
that's
the
a
very
whole thing.
first Star Wars 77.
Sure,
New
but I mean,
Hope,
but
I would say
if they've done very much to the effects in this movie, I haven't watched it the old way in a while, so
they
I don't
haven't
know
done
if
that much. This is how it looked.
Okay.
This is it. They didn't do anything.
But you
to this
were
stuff.
you were talking about stuff like fixing the
that the
camera
Yeah,
camera
it's
shit you're talking
hardly
about?
noticeable. I mean, that
Yeah.
was something you'd notice. The
Okay,
main-
but the things with Star Wars were more noticeable.
true.
Because when Eric and I watched this the other day, initially, like 10 minutes in, he goes, "Oh, Star Wars looks way better than this," and I'm like, "Well, just wait." And he's like, "Yeah, but like even just the Klingon ships at the beginning flying on space and looking more flat." I'm like, "Nah, Star Wars kind of looks like that."
I think Star Wars has a better aesthetic when it comes to like individual types of in and out detail on the outside of ships. Star Trek's a lot smoother, a lot flatter. All the ships.
See, I
in
wouldn't
Star
agree
Wars-
with that.
I think they were just trying to stay with the aesthetic of the original series. They weren't trying to go with the aesthetic of
Yeah,
all the
but
70s.
I think the ships themselves are just as detailed as
I think
they
they
are in
are.
Star
I agree with
Wars.
you.
And
They're
I'm
just a
not
different-
saying that.
they're
I
more-
think it's a different type of detail.
Right.
But
Whereas
what-
you like more nooks and crannies.
Right, but I
of
was
ships in
right,
Star
but
Wars.
I was just talking more about how they were able to layer the models on top
Right.
of space and stuff, and if it looks more or less realistic than Star Wars.
I think
not
Star
how
Wars
good
looks
the
more
model
realistic.
work.
I don't think it
does.
I can see outlines of the ships sometimes in some of the space scenes. I couldn't see...
you can see that in Star Wars, too.
Yeah, you can see that in Star Wars.
But not to the same extent, I don't believe. Not for me, anyway.
But when was the last time you watched it purely and not... And not the special editions, though, Brandon? Because those haven't been available for the longest time.
A couple of years ago, actually.
Yeah. I will say that Star Wars probably... The shots were maybe more dynamic and stuff.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's true. Sure.
True.
I just mean with, like, whatever they're trying to do versus whatever they're trying to do. Like that movie, in a lot of ways, is more ambitious.
Right.
And it's more action-driven in the first place. But I also think, Adam, that this movie has inconsistent special effects. Right. They all look really good, but sometimes they don't look like they all come from the same movie.
Right. I think you're right.
There's a shot toward the end.
The other guy's effects at all?
No.
None of them.
There's a shot. No, it's more just what you can achieve with models versus what you become forced to do with animation. There's a scene toward the end which I think is breathtaking, where they're going to walk across a bridge in space from the Enterprise 2 V'ger, which is really super cool looking. Right. But the bridge itself, except for practically when we zoom in on our characters and they're standing on it because they built part of it, it all is animated. It's all drawn. Right. And it looks as 3D as it possibly can, but we'll talk about it when we get there, but it's mixed in with other stuff that it just doesn't look like it's in the same space with exactly, but it all looks really good, but it's two different kinds of effects, and obviously it's two different kinds of effects.
And they might have even cleaned that up a little bit, because I know that they added at least one shot in that, what you're talking about, where it looks like it's coming out to the saucer.
Is that new?
Yeah, that part was new.
Can I ask you a question about the Enterprise?
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick? I've been meaning to ask this for a while, but... So, the original Enterprise had a shuttle bay, and this Enterprise would have a shuttle bay.
Yep.
So why do they keep using the docking ports? Even Spock's shuttlecraft used a docking port.
That's a really good question.
It went away from its warp nacelles and went to a docking port. They didn't want to
build a whole set for them to walk around it. They just had a matte painting or whatever of the inside of the shuttle bay.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the thing I wanted to ask you guys about.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other place where we do that. Maybe TNG does it somewhere, but first season. But isn't it weird that you had... Because this still doesn't explain the warp drive on a shuttle problem, where you take the shuttle and it's just a box, and then you have... warp nacelles, we're talking about this well after the scene, so I have to set it up, where you have warp nacelles that are connected to this base, and it pulls off like it's a toy or something.
Where's the power for the warp core?
I want that to be an explanation for how you can have warp drive without a warp core, but it still doesn't explain anything, so it seems totally pointless to me, especially if you have a shuttle bay. Why don't you just dock it inside the ship?
That's what I'm getting at. Maybe it's special technology where there's little tiny warp cores inside the nacelles.
I think there's...
why do you need reusable nacelles? What is the point
Interchangeable
what is the point of having these different boxes that can go on top of pieces of nacelle bases?
It was the Space Industrial Revolution. And a lot of weird things
happened. Already had, I'm pretty sure, a shuttle...
Are we still timing?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to still be timing?
I thought the aperture was way back.
No, we're doing till the probe, because they're still flying. They have to fly around the
And again, this all looks amazing and is alien-worthy.
It's
really good.
Some of the film looks a little grainy. That's the only thing that...
Yeah, but the model work itself...
I love a grainy look to an older movie, too.
Yeah, but it's fair to say that it's somewhat inconsistent with some of the rest of it. Yeah.
Sounds like pipe organ, yeah.
I love these shots. I mean, I don't need them to go on for 6 billion years, but I love the scale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's vast.
It does seem... Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's great about this movie and then makes it anticlimactic is how huge the scope is, and then how they had no idea how to end it, which is a thing Livingston talks about, where he says that is a thing that was a little bit on him, where he's like, we had what I thought was this great idea, but we had no idea how to end it.
Right.
And so he had to just throw his hands up in the air and let whoever's idea it was, Roddenberry, I forget whose idea it was, have the end be Decker throws himself into the thing, and are you aware of this? I'm getting ahead of myself, but I never knew what exactly was happening at the end. Time. Here, I'll talk about that later. I'll wait and talk about that when we get to it.
That's a new shot.
Okay.
Remind me, guys. When we get to the end, the thing that is actually happening when they disappear, I was not aware of what was supposed to actually be. We'll talk about that. Almost 8 minutes. 7 minutes and 53 seconds. No, over 8 minutes because we have to add 15 seconds onto it.
Right.
So at least 8 minutes.
Okay, so centered.
Watch this. Chekhov is an idiot. And Spock's going to have this moment, if memory serves, where he just looks at him like he's an idiot, and it's like the 66 Batman hates Chief O'Hara thing. It's hilarious. Watch this. Can that be one of their crew? He just completely ignores it. Yeah. Spock's just like, no, that's a probe, you moron. It's really funny.
We already said no one interfere. We already established this.
Well, yeah, but he's the captain, so he has to give an order.
Well, how can he speculate that?
No, Adam, you can't complain about that. Like Kirk has to give an order.
That's true.
It's communicating, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Brandon. So it's really dumb that he says that before this effect, and it's almost like they didn't put the effect in early enough, because Spock seems to somehow know its intentions before it's clear what its intentions are, and then he's also wrong. And he should have been like, my bad, however Spock would say my bad, because Spock's like, oh, it's only after our technology, not our crew, and then it's going to take Ilia, and he's going to be proved really wrong, and that's unfortunate.
Those little blueprints.
I'm not saying he gets Ilia killed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I would feel really bad if I was Spock.
He also just damaged Federation property on purpose.
Those blueprints and stuff were...
That was a good...
That was from the technical...
Good read. That was justified.
Yeah. What does V'ger need with a starship?
So there's a bunch of notes in this Phase 2 book about... Because this book is really cool, because it goes all the way up to the production of motion picture, so you actually learn a whole lot about how this movie was made and got started, and she has the silliest look on her face. That's unfortunate. I mean, I get that she's scared, but that was an unfortunate look.
And she's gone.
And seen. But yeah... it's really cool that it goes all the way up to the beginning of the production of this, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I forgot what we were, because she made silly faces, and I totally forgot what we were talking about. It'll come to me, I'm sure.
The security guy looks so stupid.
They do keep using those.
They use it all the way until the...
I think even for season TNG has them.
They use them up...
Don't they?
Well,
am I wrong?
Star Trek Undiscovered Country... When Chekhov fires the unauthorized phaser,
he has it. But am I right? Doesn't TNG use it?
They might.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly. Man, I can't remember what I was talking about. Are you guys okay? So Ilia was. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's related to all that. Okay, so there's notes all through this. It's really cool, all the different memos and things that we get from the production of that show, and some of them come from executives giving them story notes. And what's really funny is unusually the executive is totally right almost all the time, where it's like, this is really boring, and it could be so much more interesting, and here's how you can make it more interesting. And one of the big things is that Ilia is supposed to be this really captivating character that we're supposed to all fall in love with. Does not translate at all in this movie at all. Like, she's already dead, and I never cared about her, and I know nothing about her except she had this thing with Decker, and that's really sad. A big
and
thing
her celibacy is legendary.
Yeah, okay. Big thing I didn't know is she was supposed to be Kirk's love interest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were, and I think that goes back to Phase 2. But then going even into the first drafts of this movie, it was supposed to suck more when she dies because she and Kirk have a thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then doesn't that lend itself, though, to the idea that maybe she says that to Kirk?
So, like, character
Kirk
development
is
and
a
stuff?
womanizer?
No, I always read it that way, too, Brandon.
Okay.
I'm totally with you there.
Okay, cool.
But I think that's more of a nod to the audience than it is anything in that scene with those characters. But, yeah.
All right.
Where it's just sort of like, yeah, and I always wondered if they went back to this or if that was just word choice that we thought of twice.
Probably.
With Resistance is Futile.
It's like bioluminescence.
You might see her again in a second, but the person they got to replace Ilia on the bridge is William Shatner's second wife, I think.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. She came and she turned the chair in an awkward direction before she sat down.
So there's
I noticed
a thing.
Her specifically.
Is that that random crew member maneuver, Brandon?
Yeah.
Picard has his pulling the shirt down thing, and then Riker has his stepping over the chair thing, and she has the turn the chair weird before she says, okay, there's a thing that's about to happen here, or it might be 20 minutes from now, I'm not sure. With the starfish opening, it's gonna close on the view screen, and then we're gonna cut outside, and it's open, and I don't know what's going on. Are there multiple openings? Is it just the one? I don't know what's going on.
Probably they just forgot.
Are there more than one chamber? I don't know.
This would all be dull. Like, it's spectacular looking, and I love the awe and wonder of this movie, and I appreciate the fact that it's the most alien thing we've ever had, and it's a thing that evolved from something we built, but it's not...
Viewer.
Okay, here it is. Here it comes.
Closing.
But it's not worth how boring this is all I'm saying. So it's going to close, and then we're going to cut to the outside. What is going on?
I think that's into the next part of the ship,
listen,
isn't it?
They said reverse angle viewer. They were looking at the one they just came through.
Okay, so there are more than one. Okay, see, I just didn't know if there were more than one, and Eric and I were talking over that scene. Okay, all right, now I know what's going on.
There are different
Fair
chambers
enough.
Because when they originally show the graphic of this nebulous entity thing, you can see the different spheres of
the layers, or
the different the different layers. But it was curious to me how they were able to probe it at all. How they were able to probe it at all and get that information from so far away. How did they know what it was?
It's just.
I don't know. I thought it was just supposed to be the layers of the cloud, but they didn't actually show the vessel at the heart.
No,
of the
they didn't. But you really can't penetrate a nebula, though.
Well,
it is really easy to make those kinds of mistakes when a movie is this slow and boring, and you're just not invested at all in what's happening. Like, I just don't care about what's happening. Yeah, that's all it is. There's some potentially interesting things with Spock, but that's mostly just when you compare him to. Or like when you parallel what he's dealing with the larger ideas with the creature. It's not even paralleling Spock with any other characters. It's just Spock versus the themes of the movie. I'm sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if we should bring this up now or when we actually meet V'ger, but how similar V'ger is to Nomad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Think that
I've already been thinking about
that.
Livingston, I believe, said he went back and watched a few episodes, or maybe he knew them really well. I'm honestly not. I don't remember that. What I do know is that Robert Wise watched a few episodes, but that's not one he saw. Okay. He also didn't see Doomsday Machine, and when they finish wrapping, or when the movie's been out for a while, he says he's out at, I think this is in an interview from the 50-Year Mission, he's out at a shopping mall or something, and meets someone who asks him how come they couldn't have tried a new concept, and that was the first that he had heard that they remade Doomsday Machine and The Changeling. He didn't know about either of those episodes.
Wow.
What are we looking at here?
And Roddenberry dismisses it, saying, well, when you've made 79 whole shows... Yeah, it kind of looks like a sonic shower. He's like,
you are the Kirk
He's
unit.
like, you're bound to do some things that are gonna have like some similarities to what you did before. And to Roddenberry's credit, I think he's right about this. He says it wouldn't have been as noticeable if more of the character stuff had made it into the movie.
Right.
And that's probably fair, but I do think he dismisses the similarities too much. Like, especially when Ilia shows up and starts calling him Kirk Unit, it's way too much like...
How do they have a bathrobe in there?
Like Nomad and the Kirk. And it's also really weird that this movie would have so much in common with Doomsday Machine when you have a character named Decker in it.
Right.
Who, by the way, was supposed to be Matt Decker's son, but somehow the line never gets into the movie. And there are... I forget who it is, but somebody makes a note about it. Maybe even during the Phase 2 period, even before the movie, I can't remember. Or maybe it was as they were finally putting the movie together. But somebody makes a note where they're like, hey, I thought it was... I think it was the script supervisor. He's like, hey, I thought Matt Decker was this guy's father, but then... And that was originally in a draft, but suddenly there's some other explanation, and they should have gone back and put it in, but they didn't. Or it wouldn't, not even another explanation, just something he says that would have contradicted the fact that Matt Decker was his father. And people have always wondered about that. And
I always thought he was, but, you know.
Remember that for trivia, that the ensign in the background, his name is Perez.
Okay.
It just seems like if you were Decker and Matt Decker was your father, at some point in this movie you'd be like, dang it, this is a lot like that thing my dad went through.
Yeah.
Like,
She wears a bathrobe for the rest of this film.
Yeah. It's crazy.
The helmet that the ensign's wearing has a large emblem just right smack dab center.
Yes, that's the goofy security uniform we're talking about.
That's so hilarious. I just didn't remember seeing it up close, and I couldn't really tell in the earlier shot.
I want them to still have those well into TNG where that's a comm badge and he has to like hit himself in the forehead in order to call people.
That seems like a very Spaceballs thing at that point.
Yeah, that would be the best. So there should be a really interesting thing here about identity and the nature of the soul and stuff, and we're not able to take it far enough. And the idea is there. A lot of the things I think I grabbed onto when Sarah and I did a commentary on this years ago, it's crazy how long that's been now, are just ideas that I'd never thought of and didn't realize this movie was about anything. But it's like some of my issues with Man of Steel, where I'm initially really captivated and then don't have any character stuff to grab onto. So then it's like, well, just write a paper or draw a painting as opposed to telling a story about people, because I don't care about anybody involved.
Right.
Even the smallest bodily functions are duplicated.
Yeah,
but
and so
she's still a robot.
They'll talk later about the idea that she might have her memories. And that they might be able to get to her because of that,
Okay.
One of the more interesting ideas about this is that we assume that V'ger must not be alive because it's a machine, and V'ger assumes we must not be alive because because we're not machines, and V'ger is a machine and assumes that anything... That like other things must be like it in order to take it seriously and consider it an actual life form. And again, that idea is really compelling.
They've done similar things to that in other episodes of Star Trek too. Similarly, like in the Voyager episode, when the light beings get on the holodeck and they don't believe that anybody else is real, they're like, we're not getting any readings off of you.
Way sillier in that, but and even in this, it's pretty weird that V'ger says carbon units are not life, as opposed to saying carbon units are not intelligent life. Like, I don't know, like, how does it define life? That when does it find what beings, guys, has it found that it would consider life before?
I think it's considering the Enterprise to be
and it
life.
Is. Well, we talk about that,
and here's why. Because
no, there's no question about it. That's brought up. We said that.
But here is why. Oh, that's hilarious. Here's why, though. It's because V'ger's looking for things like it, just as we look. Like,
I get that, and that's like the idea on paper. My point is, like, what else has it found?
V'ger's been traveling for a while. We established this. There's
I'm wondering what else it's how is it not already come to the conclusion that everything else that isn't like it isn't necessarily self-aware? And it has kind of that problem that Star Trek often has with the difference between sentience and self-awareness. Where, like, I don't know what it means when it says life. Does it mean intelligence, or does it just mean alive? And obviously, like, regardless of what we're made of, we know that other things that aren't exactly like us, if they have particular properties, are clearly living. They just might not be sentient, or they might not be self-aware. I don't know, as advanced as it is, how it comes to the conclusions it comes to.
Right. Especially if it would have all the information, or some of the information at least that was contained on the original gold discs, which I think is...
I don't know what exactly it knows from that, though. Because it doesn't even know what it's called. I mean, it thinks it's called V'ger because there's dust in between some of the... Yeah, but it seems like it just reads the site of itself and thinks it's called V'ger, right?
Or maybe the aliens...
That's how that works.
The aliens repaired it. They found it damaged.
Maybe
they programmed it to think
V'ger.
it was V'ger.
That's fair.
I think that's how it goes.
So Eric accidentally stumbled on something I thought was interesting and will forevermore think is how they should have handled this.
Okay.
Which is, he at some point accidentally mispronounces V'ger with a hard G. I think they should have done that.
V'ger?
Yeah, I think they should have done that because it's a real big reveal at the end that V'ger is actually Voyager with those letters in between. I would have made that sound as alien as humanly possible.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying anybody called it. I'm not saying anybody hears V'ger and calls Voyager, but it's a bigger... I'm not even saying it's a much bigger surprise, but it would have maybe felt that way a little bit in the moment where you're like, V'ger, oh, it's Voyager, oh, okay. That would have been cool.
Well, her consciousness is coming forward. Yeah, Ilia consciousness.
Thanks for interpreting this movie, because I honestly need somebody to do that. I need somebody to sit by and tell me exactly what I'm seeing. Some movies require interpreters. This may be one of those. In fact, even less of an interpreter and more of just someone to like keep me focused. Captain Logan, this is what's going on, right? Thanks, because I was kind of wanting to play some Sudoku or something. I don't even like Sudoku.
I definitely have to retract my earlier statement because I didn't realize that room was on the ship. That's the room that I thought was the Federation room, but that's the recreational facilities.
But hadn't we already left Space Dock? Where did you think we were?
I wasn't even thinking about that.
They're all back on.
No, see, this it's really easy for that to happen with this movie. You need someone interpreting it.
Slow pacing.
Okay, so can I ask a big superficial question? We're all heterosexual men in this room. Is she attractive? As like the whole bald thing, does it work? Because I mean, like they kind of created her as what will later become a bunch of those Star Trek really real sexual women, like sex symbols. Does it work?
Okay, here's the thing for me. I see them going for like a real sleek face with the Cleopatra type thing, and I think the bald head actually works for the character, but it's not something I'm personally into.
Sure, yeah.
So I can see it both ways.
I think it works okay. I like that she totally commits to it.
It totally works.
And to be fair, it's weirder in '78 than it is now.
Right.
Of course, but I think it totally works. And they
remember about this movie.
It is, yeah.
It also helps that they did such a good makeup job because they had the potential to botch that completely if you were seeing too many lumps on the head or just seeing.
I think she just has a perfectly round head. I don't think it's a makeup thing at all.
But also,
they put a cap on.
No stubble
originally
or anything
they did
like that.
But so she fully, if memory serves, she fully commits to this,
right?
And shaves her head. I don't think she has a cap.
But they still have to put a cap on to hide like hair follicles, any kind of growth.
No, now that I'm looking at it closer, you can't see the growth or anything.
But yeah,
I think it does work.
They cone-headed that without the cone. You're absolutely right. And incidentally, in Coneheads, they also have those laurel wreath things.
Centaur rings. The cone is too young.
Oh my God! You remember dialogue from Coneheads?
I remember that movie.
That is the best. Just the stuff blows me away sometimes. We should watch that together. I haven't seen that in eons.
I remember that part.
Okay, I can one up you in this way. I do own a couple of Coneheads action figures.
Wait, they made
you probably don't have that.
I didn't even know we made them.
Oh yes, yes they did.
There was a line of merchandise.
Yes there was. God, I haven't thought about Coneheads in the longest time. Have you seen Coneheads?
It's been years. It has been years.
That was when we were kids.
I remember more of the SNL sketches than the movie.
See, it was a long time before I ever saw those.
She was like a Miss Universe, wasn't she? Persis Kambata from India.
Yeah.
So do you think that even though her memories are coming forward, do you think that the V'ger craft is actually more interested in that and is actually letting her... do you think it's studying by way of her acting above the programming.
Yeah, I never have a good enough sense of what exactly the probe is doing.
Yeah.
It's
so
we know
it's
like
that's
why is it trying to communicate with them?
I think it's
so it can remove them.
Why do all these probes want to return to Earth and find their fathers,
you know?
if you will?
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up because, and we'll talk about this with the later movies too. But weirdly, considering how at least critically unsuccessful this movie. I mean, this movie made a lot of money. It was actually really successful, but it, especially with all the money they spent on Phase 2, it was stupidly expensive. Some of this stuff looks pretty cool. And Nimoy is going to have this crazy look on his face when he shoots off. This takes forever before he finally shoots off, but then he's just going to have this really serious expression on his face. Just wait for it. It's great.
Yeah. These things weren't even a reality yet. Thruster packs in space.
Well, that's why it's science fiction,
No,
Brandon.
I know, but we have them now. We've got almost the exact thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, we catch up.
They had them. They don't use it anymore because it was not very safe.
Oh, was it somebody flying practical?
Untethered from space?
I'm fairly certain that the first one was only used in the late 80s.
It was on the space shuttle.
It looks like the Uhura just has a big number 9 behind her.
Does she?
Like she's looking at this. She's looking at a schematic of probably V'ger. And it looks like a number 9. So what I was going to say is, it's weird how much we keep doing some of the same things that are in this movie and make things that look like this movie in later films, given that we're trying so hard to get away from it.
Right.
As you alluded to, Brandon, the whale probe is kind of V'ger again.
A little bit.
Yeah, they come back, and I mean, we're already riffing on, like you said, Nomad too. Nomad wanted to come back and find its
we're kind of just it feels like we're just doing that again. But what I'm saying is, after this movie, we keep doing this.
Oh, of course,
the galactic barrier effect.
Maybe it's because they want to get it right.
Similar to the cloud, less good, but similar to the cloud effect of this movie.
And then Shatner,
look how fast he's moving,
making Star Trek V.
There he goes.
Does the Go Find God
he's
thing?
Going above impulse.
See, look at that face! I love that face.
He's going faster than impulse.
That would be warp speed. He's not going warp speed.
Yeah, he can't go faster than impulse.
No, okay, there's quarter... Okay, he's going impulse speed then.
Well, you couldn't even go impulse. That's still light speed. He can't be going light speed.
Yeah, he's going faster than the Enterprise was traveling earlier. For real. Like, you can see how fast the Enterprise was going, and he's going faster.
He's flying away. The Enterprise was stopped. He's flying away from the Enterprise.
Yes, and he's still moving faster than the Enterprise.
I think he's just saying that because
moving.
The effect, they're making him look like he's moving really fast, that he must be moving faster than the Enterprise.
Right.
There's no real sense of relativity there.
And that's what I'm getting at. There's no sense of relativity because everything's moving at different speeds in this thing.
That's
cool.
That's a thing we do in these kinds of movies all the time, though, right? Like,
that's cool.
V'ger's home planet.
I don't know how this thing is supposed to be.
But also, Adam, think about the end of Star Trek V.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get rid of God the same way we get rid of V'ger. It's exactly the same thing.
That's true.
A field coil.
Guy goes inside it.
Yeah, he's inside plasma discharges. That seems like a bad idea.
Now, this was a pretty darn ambitious thing to do. Look, it's the whale probe.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's kind of what the whale probe looks like.
Yeah.
From the front.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah. But you just wish we could have gotten here at a faster clip.
Right.
And that we cared more about the characters involved. Nimoy does not get nearly enough credit for his performance in this movie.
Right.
And he actually gets to kind of give a performance. And I suspect a lot of what I like about his character arc in this comes from Nimoy directly, because again, he had some script approval, and so he probably got to come up with some things and made this movie actually way more entertaining than it would have been otherwise, even though it's still not very entertaining.
Right.
Because of the Kolinar, he's giving this really even for Vulcans, even for Spock, super understated performance all the way up until the end.
Right.
And he's speaking almost a monotone, and he's speaking in this lower register that you never hear him use. Like this whole movie, he's like, I am Spock, and this is how I speak now. And if you're not paying attention, that effect is amazing. Yeah. If you're not paying attention to the beginning of the movie and what's going on Vulcan with the Kolinar, you might think that he's forgotten how to play the character. And then when you get to the final scene, and he's decided to, he's decided that maybe he needs to be more in touch with his emotions, and, you know, after the scene where he cries and stuff, he goes back to precisely the performance he was giving in TOS, and it's amazing.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to say it, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it, but that thing just pooped him out. It's a sphincter, and it just pooped him out.
Yeah, you didn't have to say that. Yeah, I would have really appreciated it if you hadn't done that.
Sorry, it just... That's all I'm getting from that right now.
Right.
So he got zapped then?
He did a mind meld.
He did a mind meld, that's right. And now he's catatonic.
Well, don't be too frustrated with Brandon. We all need someone to just explain what's going on in this movie, just to keep us invested.
And now it's like, Jim.
There has been at least one moment in this commentary where all three of us needed someone to explain what in the world was going on.
Yeah, we might be piecing together some semblance
all the way through it.
Crying, Jim, Beecher's a child.
But would you guys agree, now that we've watched like half this movie, or maybe like a quarter of this movie, would you guys, I'm kidding, we got 40 minutes left.
2/3.
Would you guys agree with what I said at the beginning of this, where this is the only way to watch this?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I could really sit in front of it without other people.
And how much do you really feel like you're missing?
Not
by talking over it?
Not that much.
I mean, there's so
it
little
gets
dialogue.
Almost jarring when people start talking. This is also a really TOS looking shot.
Yeah.
It's a big deal when we get the three of them together, because we don't do it enough, and then I'm reminded, I get excited, and then I'm reminded, oh yeah, but they're not really going to actually do fun triad stuff.
Spans the universe, not just the solar system or the galaxy.
I think he's speaking metaphorically.
I don't.
You don't think
and
so?
I'll tell you why.
You think he came from another galaxy?
Yes, because apparently at the end of the movie, that is precisely what they're doing. So they don't come out and tell you this in the film, I don't believe. Again, I was talking over it last time I saw it, and I'm talking over it now. But Livingston, in both places that I was reading about this, it comes up with a couple of people, but I think in both these places, Livingston specifically is talking about how he didn't have an ending, didn't know how to write it, and somebody came up with the crazy notion of having Decker go into V'ger, and then somehow or rather that makes them transcend universes and go to another dimension. And that's what's happening at the end, is they go to another dimension. So when Spock says universe, he's not even thinking big enough. Although it might not know that it can do that yet. But the idea that it transcends dimensions tells me Spock is not speaking hypothetically there.
Yeah, and we've already seen that
or metaphorically or whatever.
That he's seen representations of its entire journey. He may be realizing that he's seeing nothing that you'd ever see in this galaxy.
Yeah. No, but I buy that it can do that.
Me too. Especially since the real Voyager spacecraft is just as far out as it is.
Are you just saying it looks like it, or is that also that
they use a lot of the set from this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What, Brandon?
Oh no, you're fine. I just thinking with the rate that the actual Voyager spacecraft is traveling in the direction that it's traveling, it's out of the heliosphere, which is the complete end of the influence of the sun from our solar system. So, and that's been 30 some odd years, right? It's still moving away at quite a clip. It's still fairly slow by what Star Trek speed standards would be.
That's a new shot.
But
yeah, that looks amazing.
That is really cool.
The cloud's going away, see?
But you put that in anything now, right? And you think that was a CG shot. Like, that's amazing.
I can envision that it did eventually get far enough away.
View of the
liquid going in and out, like, that's really cool.
You got an actual view of the actual vessel.
Oh, you're fine. No, I can picture it getting that far away, especially if it got damaged and then picked up by an alien at some point.
Well, the idea, it's just an easy contrivance. It falls into a black hole.
That's what they say.
Oh, yeah.
And Brandon, it's only been 300 years. That's the only way that works. Like,
right.
It has to fall into something that takes it that far.
But
then it evolves into this greater life form, and I guess is then able to transcend reality.
What are you talking about?
I mean, with the ending,
right.
And that's just according to the guys that wrote it. As I always say, if it's not actually in the movie, I'm not giving it that much credit.
Right.
That's what they intended. I don't really know what's going on at the end of this movie, just with what we're given.
Right. Perhaps we will figure it out.
Apparently, that's what. We should go back to. It's weird. If you ever did a follow-up to this movie, Voyager would have been the place to do it.
Right.
Just because it's weird that we have a show called Voyager and we never bring up V'ger again. Like, I would have done that. Would have been a big risk, as boring as this was, but...
Yeah, they don't really call back to this film ever.
Ever. I want to say ever.
Ever. I don't remember.
There's maybe a mention of Deltons once or twice.
Maybe, yeah.
I think that's about all you get. Decker never comes up again, as far as I know.
The V'ger incident
once again,
never mentioned.
Once again, this looks amazing when it starts firing onto
Earth.
And
looking too.
Yeah. It's like I'm going to Voyager places when I look at that. I mean, the TV show.
Yeah.
Wait, where are they now?
Because
it looks Earth.
It looks like a combination of a. I forgot what that looked like. I mean, it's like before I saw it again recently. It's astounding. It looks like a cross between a Borg ship and a Species 8472 ship.
Yeah.
So did they ever
listen to how low of a register he's speaking in? That is intentional. Sorry, what?
Do they ever explain how come the Enterprise survived the first probe that engulfed it when the Klingon ships?
They said the new screens held.
The what?
The new screens held. The shields.
The new shields, huh?
Yeah.
So it's thinking that the creator is also a machine.
Yes.
Right. That's what we were talking about earlier.
This Spock says I like Jim.
This is Kirk. This is Shatner finally doing like TOS Kirk things.
Yeah.
So we already kind of talked about all of this.
Yeah.
The ideas here that they're not true life forms. I just don't know how you come to that.
Here it is.
But again, I like the hubris of, and that's why when this was a Phase 2 thing, the episode title was "In Thy Image."
Right.
The idea is, you expect your creator to look like you, and that it gives you credibility as the intended. Better species of your planet, and that's why you dominate.
Yeah, that's a good religious thing.
And the idea that you're, maybe you're even transcending your mortality to some kind of, godhood yourself, like you have the ability to get there.
Certainly. What is that a V'ger graphic on the screen in the background?
I think it's just something they thought looked cool.
That's usually what they've got going on in those, isn't it?
And so I think the big point of this movie is supposed to be that you, as an intelligent species, as humanity, we have to find some kind of a balance between our ambition and our hubris. And so like we have a responsibility for whatever we create, and we are to that thing like a god.
Right.
And obviously we have to be careful about the things that we create, but we also have to remember that we don't know where we came from either.
Right.
And just because we are the only intelligent, self-aware species on the planet doesn't make us the be-all, end-all. And who knows if we were built by something that intended us to be that and to be here at all, or if we were just a happy accident, just like V'ger is, because we are not we are not a grander species. We're not omnipotent, and we created a thing that becomes more than we are.
Clear the.
More lightning in space.
I mean, really, we love this effect so much in Star Trek, and we do that all over TNG.
I'm curious. Do you think that?
Oh, also, Space Baby is a thing we do all the freaking time. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think Phase 2's first season would have been as bad as Next Generation's first season?
I haven't looked deeply into all of the treatments, but they're in this book.
Right.
And so we can actually look at all the story outlines, and I think there are full scripts.
Okay.
but obviously things could have been changed as they made it, and as they figured out what the character dynamics of the actual people would be like. But it's hard to say. It might have been more boring.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Because I remember, I think I read this book, or parts of it.
And of course, several of these scripts become TNG scripts.
Yeah,
the Child is one of them. Yeah.
The Devils do.
Yep.
Yeah. They I think Judith and Garfield Stevens say that they don't know what would have happened with Star Trek if it had been that, maybe it would have just fizzled out after one season, if the network, because that's a lot of things to launch a new network and have it be successful and stuff.
And it's just so ironic that then the thing that was supposed to happen with Phase 2 happens with Voyager.
Right.
And UPN, and then the actual Paramount network that was supposed to happen in 78 that ends up happening in 95.
95.
Lives and dies with Star Trek.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's all it is.
Starts with Star Trek, ends with Star Trek.
That's all it ever had.
It's all it ever had.
It had.
And wrestling.
And wrestling.
It was Star Trek and wrestling.
Seasons of Buffy. Was Buffy switched from the WB?
Angel did too, yeah. But yeah, that's what they had.
They merged, right? That's the CW.
Yeah, now it's the CW.
Yep.
Boy.
Which is pretty much just the superhero network and a couple of the kind of teen drama type things they always had.
So is in Dies with Superheroes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the CW had Smallville, but it didn't happen because of Smallville.
Right.
It happened because those two.
Yeah, that's right. I seem to remember, wasn't it Smallville and actually Will Decker, Seventh Heaven,
and Smallville
was on.
I don't know if Seventh Heaven was on CW.
I think its final season
was. Or UPN. I know it was the local. I had a local station that played reruns of it, but I don't think it first airs there.
It was a WB show, I think.
Was it?
Yeah. This guy was on that show.
Yeah, that's why I mention it. It's
yeah,
Will
and
Decker.
He's married to the chick from Star Trek 4.
Yeah,
in that show.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about him for a second. How do you feel that he's a disgraced actor now?
Right? Yeah, that just happened. The last thing I saw him in, did you hear about that, Adam?
Oh, yeah.
That
I remember when it came out.
He had one of those scandals. The last thing I saw him in, he was the villain in a superhero series called No Ordinary Family with Michael Chiklis.
Okay,
I never heard of that.
I remember that was on like ABC.
It was on for 13 episodes. It got canceled. It wasn't good. I enjoyed things about it. It's not. I'll review it at some point on Rewind, but it'll be a real bottom of the barrel pick. But I'll get to that at some point.
You just made that up.
You're scraping the last of them. That's it.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I'll review that when I'm 55 and I'm making these shows in a holodeck. But
I'm just imagining you at 55.
Moments like this feel like they should be character moments. They should be moments to give us a little bit of personality and remind us who these people are. And it doesn't matter that this is Scotty. Like, he's talking in his Scottish accent, and that's about it.
Yeah. I feel like
it gets almost jarring when you get to Wrath of Khan and suddenly they have personalities
right
again.
Here, this is all new.
When you say all new, do you just mean like they didn't use this footage before?
No, that's a new. That was a new shot created.
Why did we need that?
I don't know.
What was the point of it? Why are we adding more stuff to the special effects in this movie?
Well, I think they replaced another shot that Robert Wise felt like didn't work as well.
Okay, fair enough. And I believe Wise did a commentary on this.
Yeah,
for this disc.
Right? It's pretty soon before he died.
Right. And if you've never listened to the Meyer commentaries, do it because they're wonderful. So educational.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't want stress readings. That's interesting because aren't those the bulkheads?
I know he does one for 2 and 6, and Meyer wrote 4, so he may have a commentary on 4 too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, those are the things that hold in the cells.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Here he is. Single tear.
Did you, I somehow, before my last viewing of this, never noticed that the big connective tissue in the evolution of the uniforms is that they've hung on to the stripes around the sleeves.
That was
I do like that they did that.
Right.
He's got a smartwatch too.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting a better look at their vital.
I don't know why he needs a smartwatch. He's got it all on that belt thing.
Yeah, it's on the belt thing.
If I had been them, well, first of all, I would have told you what in the world they were and used them in the story. But
right.
I would have made it not just vitals. Why not make it and maybe I'm saying this with too much hindsight because of the world we live in today and all these devices that do 1,000 things. But the tricorder does a lot of things.
Yes.
Why not make it a tricorder?
Right.
Like why not make it a thing a multi-purpose device that is both a communicator and a tricorder, and you pull it off your belt and then you speak into it and you use it as a tricorder.
Yeah.
I maybe would draw the line at phaser because you wouldn't want to accidentally shoot yourself when you had it like sitting on your belt.
Although in today's day and age, that's just what we need: phone guns.
Phone guns.
This one shines white.
No, we would call because of the way we've always titled things, or call things with phones. Like we used to say picture phone and video phone. It'd be a gun phone. It wouldn't be a phone gun. It'd be a gun phone.
Yeah.
Because we still pretend like the phone part is the main thing about the phone, even though it's not.
Yeah,
I heard a comedian recently say, the phone is just a little used app on my phone.
Right.
And I love that.
I used to say when I had my flip phone and everybody had a smartphone until I got a smartphone, I used to say, yeah, you know what my phone does? And they'd be like, what? And I go, it makes phone calls.
New that they created. They're trying to show those.
See, it is really weird trying to discuss this and have any sense of perspective when I'm discovering from you, Adam, things that I didn't know were new. Looking at this remaster, I kind of wish we weren't doing it this way.
That long ago, so that's why I remember.
Sure.
So after Ilia probe points out that that's V'ger,
right?
Uhura's like, I've located the source of everything. It's the thing we've been looking for, there.
Robert Weiss said this is what they wanted to do originally with those hexagon things, have them all float, but they weren't able to do it with the stuff back in the 70s.
The limitations of the technology. Yeah. It's going to be irritating. I'm just going to constantly call you, be annoyed. Every 5 minutes.
Like sunburn.
But don't worry, it will feel like an eternity. Put on some pants! Why is she not wearing pants?
Yeah, this is...
And Uhura has a very 70s hairstyle.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So much of this.
She's got the mega fro.
Star Trek 3, she's got Jerry curls.
Oh, yeah. But I love that she's got the huge fro, and then McCoy's got the medallion and the big beard, and I wish he looked like that the whole movie. If Ilia Probe gets to walk around without pants, how come McCoy has to shave his beard to have his uniform? I don't understand. Anyway, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So this is new right here.
Oh, There's
the bridge. Yeah.
But that's what I was saying when I said it looks too animated.
Oh, you should have seen how it originally looked. The perspective of the Enterprise matte painting is really weird.
This feels really weird. I can't give any kind of like interesting observations or analysis about what the actual movie was because I don't know what parts were. Right. Where did that not?
Yeah.
So this is all new?
This is all...
Okay, it looked cool when I thought it was from 1978.
Yeah.
I don't think that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you notice there was moss on the front of the ship?
Moss?
Or what looked like moss? Anyway, I'm sorry, what?
Did they explain how they're able to be outside the ship without...
It said an oxygen-nitrogen envelope.
Okay, I missed that.
So this is still new?
That's new, right there.
Reminds me of that crystal
Now, the thing that they're walking on, only certain ones of those hexagons were... you could walk on, and you had to play hopscotch, because if they didn't, they'd fall right through the set. And Shatner said that happened on one of the grips or somebody, and his hair caught on fire and stuff.
Awesome.
Oh, man.
I love that.
There it is, one of my favorite spacecraft of all times. Soft focus. So... Oh, that's cool. This obviously this device wasn't very old when this movie came out.
No.
Was it still on its tour of the?
Yes.
Of the.
They've been launched. They launched them like 2 years before this. I think.
Okay, sure.
So
right.
can I read you guys something else? From the Phase 2 book, this is from John Poville. Are you familiar with him?
No.
So he was the script editor for the TV show, and I think also went into the movie. And so these are all things that he's talking about from the rewrite from Collins, who was the director, who was going to direct that show but never directed anything.
Right.
Yeah, at least with this. And this is from the pilot before it's fully become a movie, when people still don't know that it's going to be a movie. They're still working on the pilot script, because that's the only one that matters, because it's going to be a movie, but nobody knows it's going to be a movie.
Right.
And this is how little... I mean, like, the script changes a lot, but this is how much it's still as problematic as this movie ends up being. So these are some of the things he complains about. He says... he feels the characters and dialogue are wrong throughout much of the script. Specifically, Decker is petulant and totally unsympathetic for the first 2/3 of the script.
Right.
Then with no transition,
way.
and more importantly, with nothing happening directly to or with him that would cause him to undergo this transformation, he abruptly mellows into a team player.
Right.
McCoy has no meat. There are no revealing glimpses of the true depth and character of the relationship between Kirk and McCoy. Instead, McCoy wanders in and out, dropping sarcastic comments at inappropriate moments. And remember, this is all before a bunch of rewrites and things before this ever becomes a movie. Also, the character of V'ger needs fleshing out. V'ger's our antagonist and must be developed as fully and consistently as if it were a humanoid.
Right.
Does not happen.
Yeah.
The script attempts to represent V'ger as an incredibly intelligent and complex living being. If we wish to avoid comparisons to Nomad, we must see evidence of this intelligence and complexity that go beyond its mastery of technology. In all fairness to Bob, I would have to say that none of the drafts to date have succeeded in truly bringing V'ger to life. If you can develop him as fully as you did Tasha, I think we'll have a blockbuster script. They thought... They're referring to Ilia there. They think that she's going to be this dynamite character.
Wow.
And they lose all the cool stuff that they were doing with her. And this keeps going, but I wanted to read you those things specifically.
Wow.
Okay, he says it must have appeared on the far side of the galaxy, which negates what we were saying about the universe earlier, possibly. But he's speculating.
That's why some people think that...
Yeah.
V'ger encountered the Borg.
Some people think V'ger is the precursor to the Borg.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's interesting.
Created the Borg? Oh.
Yes.
I like that, actually.
So what I've seen...
So is it the Barzan wormhole?
Speculations I've heard... probably not. Speculations I've heard from a lot of fans are that that V'ger is the precursor to the Borg, which is interesting because that means that we created the Borg.
Right.
And that the Doomsday Machine was built to combat the Borg. And that is a thing that we do in the novel canon.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
That's a big thing Peter David does, is he makes the Doomsday Machine a Borg killer.
That's kind of cool,
Yeah.
actually.
Rock.
Kirk unit.
The Kirk. The Roy Kirk.
Yeah.
Jackson.
Remember Roy Kirk?
It's a probe.
26.
It is cool that they at least attempt some updating of technology. But it's just not as cool to see Kirk speak into a watch.
Right.
Oh, he calls this one Voyager 6.
Yeah, they said it's like...
They say there are more of them.
Yeah.
More than 2. Right.
Yeah.
Because at the time they didn't think that there was going to not have any more Voyager.
They thought
They
there
was going to be another like a Voyager program.
Yeah.
Now, this is maybe you can fill this in, Adam. I don't know if you know this. Apparently, for the TV show, NASA was going to loan them a real probe to do this scene. I don't know if that's what that is or if they built that.
That's probably a model.
I think
because
that they built
it
that.
aged and stuff. Yeah.
But there was talk about getting one on loan.
Wow.
That's cool, but it does really seem to me like Hollywood's representation of the probe rather than a NASA
Well, they're
model.
trying to make it look all aged and stuff. See at the top there?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they could have added stuff to it.
It's definitely
I
battered.
don't know if NASA would have let them.
No, but that would have been an easy facade to just put on top of it without gluing it, or
Maybe,
you see what I'm saying? Like they could have done that. I honestly don't think that that's what that is.
Right.
I'm just suggesting that it could have been, or I'm just saying that like they had talked about
the lottery.
Your lucky numbers
and
are
Powerball?
4, 19, 25, 42.
Boom.
So it's a really interesting reveal. In the earlier drafts, it was never meant to be like the be-all, end-all of the story. Because it really feels like, it seemed like it was supposed to kind of go bigger, and just it was such a more character-driven story, or at least that's what they were going for, that once you get to this moment, it's not like, oh, I didn't care about anything that was happening until I found out about this cool plot twist.
Right. Well,
so he is going to join because he's a carbon-based and he's a creator type. Then.
Yes, and this makes no sense. Like, I don't know what the whole...
he wants
we
this.
have to join with the creator. Right. But I don't know why it works. I don't know why it needs a carbon light. I don't know why it needs the creator in order to disappear into the cosmos. I just don't know why it needs that.
To join with God. Step up.
Yeah, but like, there's what it wants and what it does, and I don't understand that. Or is the idea just supposed to be like, if it joins with its creator, then it'll leave us the heck alone?
I guess.
But it seems like something like some kind of biological, phenomenon occurs.
Right.
Because I don't think it was... Yeah. If the idea is supposed to be it goes to another dimension, I don't think it can do that until it merges with one of us.
Right.
But I think it's the idea. I mean, it's just a bunch of random crazy technobabble where it stops being science fiction and turns into a weird fantasy thing and pretends like it's still a science fiction thing.
So he just did mention that Vijay wants the creator to transmit the final sequence in person. So that's more of the impetus for him to merge, because at that point he can do that, if you will. And I guess
he wants to meet God.
Yeah, Vijay wants to meet God.
But I don't understand why.
How do we 4 movies later go find God?
But then Kirk knows what's going to happen here too. He knows that this is going to.
Yeah, how does he know
make him turn into whatever the hell it turns into?
So let's look at this. So it says it's reached the limit. So that means it definitely doesn't know it can transcend reality. He does say other dimensions. Never mind. Okay, no, it's right in the movie.
What does Vijay need with a god?
What does Vijay need with a human being?
Human quality. Spock.
Well, it was created by humans and modified by aliens.
There are places where Decker weirdly sounds like Spiner.
Mm-hmm.
He gives some Spiner-esque line readings.
Oh, he's going to join.
Let's find out. Okay. Whoa.
I would have done another take of that. I think I would have not used the take where her arm flails after she throws him. No, I did not remember that we actually come out and say dimensions. So it at least tells us what's going on. That's good.
So why does Vijay all of a sudden accept that he is the god and can transmit the final sequence?
I don't know.
See, he does. You are right. He does want this.
I know. I remember that line.
Was it more than anything?
I don't totally know why, except just to get back to her. But the thing is,
why
he doesn't know if her, soul or consciousness or whatever is really still there. Yeah. I mean, I guess he thinks this eye contact is enough.
However, I would think, though, that his love attraction is so strong that he's willing to just die anyway in the process.
This looks like...
Yeah, but if you knew for sure that she's totally dead, you wouldn't do that.
Look at his hair.
And... Yeah, it's
this
crazy.
Looks like something out of an Olivia Newton-John video.
It's Poltergeist. Oh, that
like
that
Xanadu.
too. Xanadu. What I'm trying to figure out is how exactly you achieve that wind effect. Where is the fan? Is it right under him?
It's under him blowing up. It would have to be
under him.
Yeah, it's under him blowing up.
That does look really cool.
Yeah.
Did they enhance that, or is that what it looked like?
See, it's definitely coming from underneath it.
That looks really... Yeah, it's right underneath him. Look at that. But what Eric and I were trying to figure out is it doesn't look like it blows his clothes at all.
Right.
Maybe it actually does, and I can't. Or maybe it's just so skin tight it wouldn't.
I don't know, but this is getting weird.
Yeah, well, they're going to another dimension, Brandon.
Yeah, they're merging.
No, let me reiterate. I have to give it more credit because I thought the dimension thing wasn't in there. I'm really glad that that's actually there.
And I forgot that they do.
But you didn't remember that, right?
And I didn't remember that they figured it out. Like that's what Vidra wants is to merge,
Yeah, how did
it just doesn't buy early on that we are its creator.
Oh, they're not moving fast.
I mean,
enough.
I knew it wanted to merge, but I forgot that they figured it out, and that's what was going to happen to him.
It's Data's experiment with time, and they're about to get into different time zones.
As much as I don't care enough about the people involved, cool. and especially with Decker and Ilia, like we get a scene where they talk about how they had a love affair, and then that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I know what's happening.
Right. There it goes.
All right, so
now this effect here where it goes boom, they use that in Tin Man.
Oh my goodness!
Wow!
Yeah,
and it knocks the Romulan ship out.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Of course, the Enterprise is unscathed.
Unscathed.
That's a cool looking shot, though.
It is, of course.
That's so pretty. Adam, would you agree with me if I were to say that, regardless of pacing, this movie makes more sense than most of the TNG movies?
That's true. It definitely. I get where they're going with it.
There's also a whole lot of scenes where there's just nothing happening. So like, it's kind of easy when you don't have a lot of story.
Yeah.
Did you see that reflection in the film over the Enterprise? It was really distracting.
No.
It was weird.
And you'll just keep on wondering because we're never going to go back to this. And when you go off to another dimension like that, it'd be pretty easy to do a follow-up to this.
How do you know that?
I don't think it would have been an insanely ridiculous notion to come back and do a sequel to this and try to make it cooler.
They should have done a joke here, but that would have felt like, the episode thing, the thing they always did on the original series, at the end.
Yeah, because this just felt we just saw this super incredible, amazing cosmic thing happen,
right.
And we're just so like, yeah, it's time to move on. I mean, damn it, Decker, but then it's time to move on. I'm not sure why he does that.
Oh, no, he's in the onesie version.
Yeah, which he hasn't been wearing.
No.
What do you think of that? That he Now I want to talk about something more substantial than that. What do you think about Kirk declaring them missing instead of dead? I'm not totally sure what the point of that is. Or oh no, I know what it is. It's that it's acknowledging that they're not dead.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm dumb. No, I know what that is.
Because Ilia
now Chekhov's not going to get excited yet because he's only going to go warp 1, and Chekhov only gets excited at 7. Yeah. When we go to 7, Chekhov's like yes, and he like
it's out there. It is
that away. That's so weird in a totally humorless movie.
It might be what they were trying to do as
they were setting it up
joke.
for a sequel with them saying they were missing. They're going to come back to him.
Oh man, but we get search for Spock instead.
What is that supposed to be?
Huh?
What do you mean?
As far as searching for people?
Oh yes, that's what we.
Is that like a greenhouse? The thing with all the windows at the bottom there?
Aeroponics bay?
An aeroponics
See, there's the shuttle bay.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, they've got one.
They got one. They haven't Star Trek
They did
5.
This whole refit, and then that's a different ship. That's a different ship.
It's the same ship, basically.
But see, that's really funny because this is supposed to be the same ship as the ship in the original series, but it can't be.
Right.
And then they go on point to say that it's almost an entirely new ship.
And so this human adventure thing we keep using throughout the movies, and it's weird because these characters don't have a lot of personality and humanity, but it is a idea about the nature of humanity. So I mean, like I don't have a problem with using that. It's just unfortunate that it's a real slog and it's a real wooden movie, so it doesn't feel like you watched a movie about humanity.
Right. Grateful acknowledgement is made to
so there's Bob Fletcher's credit. Isaac Asimov is a really interesting thing. So apparently, I'm trying to remember this story right. Was it an executive, or there was someone who, man, I can't remember it exactly. Somebody hires Isaac Asimov to try to. Oh, I know what it is. This is early enough, and we haven't done a lot of these kinds of stories, that there's an executive that complains that it's too far-fetched of an idea that you would have a machine that we would consider alive, that's a stupid idea, and he brings in Asimov as a consultant to tell them that that's stupid, and obviously they're influenced really heavily primarily by Asimov when they come up with this idea, and Asimov says, no, that's a great idea. I've written this many times. And he remains the consultant on the film. That's hilarious.
Isn't Asimov the one who conceived the positronic...
Yeah. And the three laws of robotics, yeah.
So, like, they use it, like, that's all data, too.
Yeah.
So...
I don't remember if he called it positronic.
I assume so. Rain, and it's
he's the one that coined it.
I thought so.
Yeah, and it's just a nonsense term that he came up with.
Yeah,
well, sure. It is, but I mean...
You're a nonsense term.
The point that I'm kind of making there is that, you know, at this point...
You making a point, Brandon?
I'm just kidding. Why would this be any different than any of the other AI type stuff that TOS did? Like the androids and things, and the sentient computers.
Yeah, they could have been like, look, we did this on the old show a lot.
Yeah, because clearly that person didn't look at that. You know?
Yeah, I guess not.
So Grace Lee Whitney, unfortunately, looks really bad in this movie.
Yeah.
And they really should have given her the checkerboard hair. Her hair is all over the place. It's really weird.
Yeah. She did not have, like, a good life.
No, I know, and I think this is around when that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
She just passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I did get to meet her at a con.
That's cool. Do you have her signature?
I did. I don't think I do anymore.
So these are the credits for the people who did the special...
Oh, they put in a credit for the book from Pocket Books?
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing. Roddenberry got paid a weird amount of money to write that.
Mm-hmm.
So Roddenberry writes that, and he writes it as they're making the film. Because the movie is... and like the director's edition got a logo.
Yes,
weird. Okay, so this
credits,
keeps going, because then they do more credits. Weird. So anyway, he goes home each day, and as they're making the movie and writing more script, he is adapting it to the novelization. It's the weirdest way I've ever heard to do that, and I kind of want to look at his novelization and see what that's like. I have it. I've never read it. I don't know if there are really any deviations in the novelizations. I have most of them.
In Star Trek 3, they had the whole love story between David and Saavik that was not
in the
movie. Because I remember that because we were in club and you read a random section of it one time.
And then you're
I don't remember
that doesn't happen. Oh, is that where we found out about that? Wow. Well, so that was less of a slog. It felt less than 16 hours because we were all having a good time chatting.
Yeah.
And so that was good.
Like 15 hours, 58 minutes, you know.
Yeah, it was better than the last time you watched this by yourself. And by that I mean when you fell asleep 30 minutes in and so Eric and I, because you look at your watch when you watch this movie, Eric and I were watching this the other day, and at one point Eric says, how much longer do we have? Because I'm not sure if we've been here for 20 minutes or for 3 hours. And I turned on, because we were watching this on a Blu-ray player, and I turned on the display, and it was on the wrong part of the display, and he goes, we've only been watching this for 3 minutes?
That's great.
No, the overture is 3 minutes. So we're going to come back fairly soon, I imagine, and do Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I don't want to give a hard date, say it in a couple weeks, but we want to do that soon, and I want to try to have these fresh in our minds.
We
as
watched
we're talking
Wrath of
about
Khan
these
in the theater. So
we did.
There?
We've seen it recently. I don't think Brandon made it.
No, I didn't go to Wrath of Khan.
Eric came with us.
Eric was there.
Yeah, and that was just as Eric was getting into Star Trek, was discovering Star Trek. We did that shortly after we got him to watch Best of Both Worlds. Did a Treknado with him.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm excited about that. It's one of my favorite movies. It's obviously most people's favorite Star Trek movie. So that'll be a lot of fun to do. It'll be fun to see if we can think of anything new to say about that movie.
Right.
But I might do a little bit of background research for that too. I don't know, everything.
I want you to find out for me because I heard this somewhere.
Sure.
I don't remember where.
And I don't mean to make these all about background information, but it's especially because I've done some of these before. I just wanted to talk about something I hadn't talked about before.
I want you to find out. Were they originally thinking about making just the sequel to this just be a TV movie? Because I heard that.
Well, what I do know is that part of the strategy for this was to build sets that they could leave standing and put stuff in that they could keep going with because they thought that they might do a TV show right after motion picture. But I think the reason they didn't was because it cost so much.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, like, it was successful. They did make a lot of money, but I think they were freaking out about that $42 million price tag.
Right. Well, weren't they not going to do it any more? But then the wife of one of the executives was, like, a fan, and she was like...
I have heard that. Yeah, I don't know how true that is.
I don't know.
But I know there's a story where an executive, I forget who, asked Meyer... if he thinks he can make he can make a Star Trek movie for less than $42 effing million, or maybe he just said 15. I don't know what number he threw out, but it was like that's an inordinately expensive film. Can you do it for less than that? And Meyer's like, yeah, I can do it for like a quarter of that, and so.
How much was it? Was it like $10 million? Is that what the budget was on Star Trek 2?
Yeah, it's not crazy.
Smaller than this.
I mean, still a pretty big budget for that period for this kind of movie, but and what they did when they decided to make it a film as opposed to a TV show is they said it has to be at least as expensive as Star Wars. They said at this point we can't get away with making it less than that because we don't want it to look cheap. Yeah, and so that's why it climbs to like $12 million, but then they go crazy.
Right.
And they also lump in, like I said, all the money that they had spent already.
Stuff they wasted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And initially with Phase 2, we were talking about uniforms earlier. Mm-hmm. They thought they were planning on using the exact same outfits from TOS.
They weren't going
to change at all.
I'd seen some screen test shots with Ilia and the Zahn guy.
Yes,
and they were wearing the original
uniforms.
Cool. Yes.
And I mean, they would have fitted them for them. Those were uniforms they had laying around. Like they would have probably made new ones for them. Okay. But they were going to use those designs so that they could just use whatever they had laying around for extras.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
So anyway, folks, thanks a lot for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you again, hopefully pretty shortly, with the Wrath of Khan commentary in the Wrath of Commentary. Yes. In the meantime, I am Captain Logan, and this was Brandon Grimm.
Hi, or bye, all.
And Adam Meredith.
Bye.
See you, folks.